So, are we set to get going? Shall we play the slides?
Absolutely. Let me start this, and please let me know then if you, in a second, can see. Can you see the slides of presentation? Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
Great.
So I guess many of us are here because we have a passion, a connection, and probably some work to do with young people and education. So whether we are a parent, whether we're working in a community, whether we're working in a school, whether we're working in social services or the police or wherever, we have some commitment to ensuring that our young people are really able to grow and flourish and thrive. We talk so much, don't we, about thriving. So here we're going to be talking today about social emotional learning. What is social emotional learning? If you have a thought about that, please do pop that into chat. It's great to be able to learn from others. At 6 seconds, we talk about social emotional learning being able to build relationships, improve health, being able to connect with ourselves and with others, having that insight to ourselves and our others, being able to be effective in what we do, and being satisfied. We don't call it happy, we call it being satisfied with where we're going and what we're doing and how we're impacting, adding to the world. We now have over 65,000 people around the globe who are members of the 6 Seconds Network. And you can become a member of the 6 Seconds Network. It's free and easy. Please just go to the 6 Seconds site and create a little profile for yourself. So there are lots of people you can see from the map. We've got a lot of people practicing, probably near you. This map is also available on our website. Go check it out. We have a vision, and that vision is 1 billion people practicing emotional intelligence by 2039. And this conference is about how could we be one of those billion people practicing emotional intelligence, sharing emotional intelligence, and enabling others to be emotionally intelligent themselves. And we look at this through 3 pursuits, which is how do we gather insight to where we are, where we want to be, who we are, what we're doing, how we're thinking, how we're feeling, how we're using that insight to make intentional choices, and the connections that we make between what we know and what we want to be able to do. And then finally, thinking about our outcomes. What goals do we have? What do we really want to achieve? We call this purpose. So insight, connection, and purpose are an important part of social emotional learning. And we're going to hear from some wonderful people today who are going to be able to take us through their experiences, the things that they've been doing using emotional intelligence to be able to help people to develop emotional intelligence. So I'm going to hand over to Ilaria. She is going to take us through this next part where we're going to do a little bit of interaction.
Absolutely. And we haven't introduced ourselves, but Catherine Roth is our regional director for 6 Seconds Europe. And myself is here with her to interact with you today and share with you. And I'm program manager for education and programs in Europe and global. And what we're going to do now is learning through interactions. Probably you all are a little bit used to use breakout rooms in Zoom. And what we do is, first of all, sharing some data cards. The first card you will find also in the chat, because Dula will pop this in the chat for you, is a card about youth, mood and technology, and you will have the possibility to read over this card in breakout rooms. This is the blue card. you can take a screenshot if you want, but we are popping this into the chat. The second card is the red card, and it's about neurodiversity in Europe, according to a study from the World Health Organization that was produced in 2015. And so you will be able to look at this chart and share your feelings, thoughts, and also possible actions that you want to implement looking at this data, these cards. And the third one is, about empathy. And unfortunately, the studies that are showing that over these last years, empathy is decreasing also in youth. So again, what you're going to do now is to join our breakout rooms for 10 minutes. You will be able to decide in your group to discuss just one of these or all of the three if you have time. And when you'll be back in the main room, we will ask you to share one insight, one feeling, one thought, and also one action, why not, that you want to share with other people when you're back. Okay. So I think Dula will be able, or Catherine, probably. Yeah. Yes.
So I'm doing the breakout rooms. I'm going to create 20 breakout rooms.
Amazing.
Way, isn't that fantastic? So you should have 4 to 5 people in each room. New people are joining, so in your conversations you may have others join you as you're talking. Please do take a picture of the card or take a screenshot of the card. Ilaria, could you just go back through
absolutely
those
absolutely
cards, please?
So this is the green card, decreasing empathy. And so if you want to take a picture, a screenshot, and then there are the PDF in chat. And neurodiversity, the red card. And then we have the blue one, mood matters.
Dula, are you able to put the PDFs into chat?
I'm sorry, I can't find it. I have some difficulties. I don't know why.
Okay.
I sent you an email this morning, Dula.
Yep.
It's only scope, only state of the heart.
No, I'll pop them in.
Okay, yeah. Great. Thank you.
1 second.
Ilaria, the question was for the breakout rooms that this card is discussed and what it means to the group, right?
Absolutely.
Content
so
of the card.
Yeah, in the group you can pick just one and discuss what are the feelings and the meaning, what is that resonates inside you, your thoughts, and maybe what is your experience with this data in your country, in your setting, in your field, and then discuss with the group. And when you come back, please just put in the chat one of these feelings, one of the insight from your sharing, your discussion.
Okay.
Do you have the cards?
Yeah, it's just taking a while to actually pop it into chat.
Okay.
I also added the question now in the chat.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, because also we took the pictures, and then when we have breakout rooms, we don't have the access to the shared and the main chat, I think so.
Absolutely.
We can do it later.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when I'm not able to add them to the chat at the moment. So
okay, so
just
everyone,
take a photograph of them,
yeah,
maybe have another look at them, read them through, and just even if you're only discussing the 3 titles they're in chat, which is empathy and declining empathy. What does that mean for ourselves and our young people? Neurodiversity and how we manage different ways of approaching things, and mood, and how mood impacts the current climate.
Okay, I think we can go into breakout rooms. I think you all have had the time to take screenshots,
yeah.
And so join the room, and you will be back in 10 minutes. Thank you. Enjoy. And we can pause the recording, Catherine, for now, just for 10 minutes. School for the development of Romanian, and she will actually share her project with this foundation that we are grateful to collaborate with. And Larisa is working with institutions, as said, in Romania, and she is developing social and emotional learning in classroom through a systemic approach. And she is an advanced 6-second CQ practitioner, assessor, and facilitator. So please, thank you, Larisa. I hand over to you, and you will tell me next slide in order to support your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ilaria, and super grateful to be here, and mega grateful to have Olivia and Andre with me here. And I think I already see some other faces that I really know. I can also see Georgiana there. I think you can go to the next slide. So what I would like to talk today about is a program that we run through the foundation Dan Voiculescu, which was around building a growth mindset through social emotional learning. And I'd like to share some insights and what were some of the highlights of the program last year and what were some of the challenges. But also, I think it's quite important that you hear the voice of the youth. So 2 of the participants of last year will also share with you some insights and hopefully some of their key learnings in this. I've been really reflecting, and Ilaria, you can go to the next slide. Thank you so much for helping with this. We can go to the next one.
Oh, sorry.
Don't worry, that's fine.
I don't know why. A second. Okay.
So I've been really reflecting how I'd like to approach the insights part in this conversation. And what I'd like to say is that I tend to go much more on there is a situation, things don't necessarily go as well as we may want them, but I like to believe there is an opportunity. And the fact that on a Saturday, so many of us get together to talk about social emotional learning is because we all want to be contributing to bring more social emotional learning into the way we educate the youth, but also we educate ourselves. So I think the way I'd like to position this conversation for the upcoming minutes is around a quote that I particularly love. And it says, people are always and already in the middle of something. And when I thought about what type of data would I like to bring to the conversation today, I felt like the type of data I want to bring is a data of opportunity, is a data of there are some things out there that need our attention, that may represent a concern. But I think if we choose to look at what can we do different at the end of these 3 hours to transform those concerns or those problems into opportunities, then I think that that's the way forward. And the fact that people are always and already in the middle of something, this is something that keeps me grounded, because unfortunately now we are going through this pandemic, but there's always something going on for us. There's always a new situation. There's always an economic situation going on. There are always some problems in a system or another. The most important thing is that we are together. There will always be something going on, but the power sits with us to make changes in our own areas of influence. And I hope that at the end of these 3 hours, we would have provided some food for thought, and we would have exchanged some food for thought, because I think we learn from each other, and it's never a one-way street when it comes to learning. So Ilaria, if you go further, you can actually display what is over there. So I will not insist a lot about walnut wisdom, but I think there are a couple of things I wanted to highlight here And those are the things, the pillars that we are founded on. So when we go out there and we talk about systemic approach in schools, when we talk about systemic approaches in education, we really focus our work on these elements. And there's also the last one, Ilaria. So if you, the practice one at the bottom, yes, that one. Thank you. So a couple of things that are things that we try to do at Walnut Wisdom, and also in our work with the foundation, plus other projects that we are involved in, is focusing on the fact that emotions are real. So when we talk social emotional learning, it's not about being emotional or having emotional learning. It's just acknowledging that emotions are real and they are important. And when we suppress or when we ignore emotions, we are actually not doing ourselves a service. Plus, most of our decisions are most of the time including an emotional component. So in the social emotional space, we really focus a lot on bringing literacy around emotions. The second piece is we always say that every person has a story to tell. These are not quotes that we invented, by the way. These are things we adopted from people we like how they talk and what they do, and we've just edited them in our current context. So we won't take credit for the full lines. But every person has a story to tell is important to us. And I have to say that in the last 1.5 years, having spent quite some time with students, but also with teachers, I really understand that people want to do well. People want to add value. People want to contribute. So I think we could all do better by sitting and listening to what's going on for every person. Because in a world that is so technologically connected, we experience so much more disconnection at the human level. So I say it's important for us to listen because every person has something to say. I'll go slightly faster through this so that we get to our main point. But at Walnut Wisdom and in the work we've been doing with the youth, we always talk about the fact that success isn't a popularity contest, and our success shouldn't be based on what we see on social media. We can all have role models, we can have people that we can look up to, but probably I'd say that does not necessarily have to define us. So a big piece in the work we try to do at Walnut Wisdom is to encourage the youth mainly to find their own definitions for success. And that is slightly away from just replicating what we think is success based on social media.
It's no way is the way, right, Larissa? One of also the 6 seconds learning philosophy pillars.
Yes, and in fact, I'm glad that you said that, Ilaria, because what we looked at working with 6 seconds, at least me, for such a super mega long time, I thought I would like what we do to be aligned with the 6 pillars that 6 Second has. Education is a holistic process. It's pretty self-explanatory. I think still in lots of schools, there is a big focus on cognitive learning and cognitive knowledge and intelligence related to cognition and to the classical types of intelligences. But for us, when we talk about education, we look at 3 elements: cognitive, social, and emotional. And education is a process rather than an event. Enthusiasm is common, perseverance is rare. We talk a lot about growth mindset in our work. So perseverance is probably still rare, but I think with more work around growth mindset, it can become more of the norm. And I think it's as empathy, a competence that we can all be building. And last but not least, when we talk about practice, is 6 seconds, 1, 2, 3, pasta. All these encounters are great, but obviously what follows through and how we apply what we learn from these exchanges is going to be the core. That's really in a nutshell about us. We can go forward, Ilaria.
Yes.
And as I was really reflecting, how does the current social landscape in Romania impact education? I came to look at them from a perspective of possibility and opportunity. And I'm really curious and happy to hear in the chat box, and maybe Abdullah can also let me know once we have some answers over there. I'd say this is not something that is applicable to Romania only, but I think in more countries with the new way of doing things, you may have experienced as well. And I'm curious if you have something else in other countries around this question. Happy to hear and to learn from you. But I think the key points I have identified in the last 1 year and a bit were these 6. The fact that there is at times a discrepancy in terms of the access to technologies in cities versus the countryside, because you may have remote areas where the internet facilities are not that well set. And we know, for instance, that Romania has really good access to internet. Actually, it has been quite widely recognized even in Europe for this. But I do think, and I heard also from colleagues of mine from other countries, that the access to technologies in cities versus the countryside, that is a potential challenge nowadays when it comes to impacting education. The second one is one that is quite close to me in the sense of readiness and requirements to move to online learning. I personally, I have a really strong preference for face-to-face interactions. And in my work as a consultant and as a facilitator, I've done most of my sessions face-to-face. And I had some challenges as well when I had to move to online learning and to facilitating sessions online. And I think these 2 elements are quite relevant, and they are impacting education. The readiness of the individuals to move to online learning. And in our change programs, we always talk about change is an event. Change happens. We have to move to online learning. But the question is, how ready are we to adapt to that change? And what I've experienced is that some people were super ready and flexible and really prepared to move to online learning. But have we all been? Or what are the requirements? What do we need in order to feel comfortable to move to online learning? And that's something that I can highly connect with. And I think socially, it has not been an easy thing for many people to move to online learning.
Yeah, and Larissa, I think we can encourage the educators here in during this conference to really share in the chat their experience about, you know, what it was over this pandemic to teach kids, for example, online, and maybe having meetings with colleagues online and with parents online. So your feelings and your experience exactly of challenges and also good things, because, for example, having meetings online can save time and also, you know, can be more efficient and effective. It depends. So please just pop in the chat your experience.
Exactly. And if you could also help us to kind of explore how ready did you feel and what were the requirements you personally had in order to move to online learning. And the requirements don't always have to be the technical ones, right?
Exactly.
It's what type of learning I have to do before I do online learning. Because I'm not sure about others, I can definitely say, I didn't know there are so many platforms where you can go and learn online. At the beginning, I had people who were not necessarily making the difference between online learning and e-learning. Are they the same? Aren't they the same? So really curious to hear from you. How did you experience the readiness to move to online learning? And that's, I think, very much connected with what tools and resources did you have available, and what tools and resources were you missing? Because maybe if you are in a school that is more technical or IT related, maybe there were more computers in those schools. But what about other schools where that setup wasn't available? How quickly was the system able to adjust and to bring the technology required for teachers and students to engage in online learning? That is, again, I think something that I felt has impacted a lot during this period, but curious to hear from you as well.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, no.
I would like, from my perspective, I would like to encourage also people to unmute themselves, perhaps as we have difficulties from online to in-person studies. Somebody has difficulties maybe in typing. So please unmute yourself, and you can just share in your own language as well. We have also facilitators in your native language here. So I suggest also this, and I would like also to share my perspective as a parent, also with a teenage daughter. It was pretty stressful, but what I learned, it was also stressful for educators, obviously, because also there's a neighbor here next to me, and she had problems with technology. You know, in beginning they started to share things only via mobile phone. But then it was like impossible, you know, to have chats, and then computers are needed in such activities, and as well internet connection for rural areas or economically unable people to have that. So it's pretty complex, and I think the governments really need to pay serious attention to this, to move. Because I don't want to sound pessimistic, but this can really last. But again, if we really want to move to online and to technology, we have to work. Because my experience was like so much pressure was sent to the end line, like that are children's, and that somehow need to be, if not parents themselves, need to be discussed openly. To say, children, it's not only your fault now if you can't succeed. Absolutely. And have a grades and whatever, because that was my impression from my daughter. Like, she felt like, you know, everything is expected, the results and everything from her. And I tried to discuss that it's not only her, or that also children, or that also educators have problems. But unfortunately, we don't hear that in media. We don't hear that in open discussion like this today. So that's why I encourage also, and I try to work with the youth community and Ministry of Education, some links just to say that need some transparency, because people need to communicate. We have that possibility to use medias, and I hope. I'm sorry, I took the time.
Absolutely. There are also other studies showing that one of these was about feeling low. Youth that are feeling low regularly every week. And with this pandemic and this lack of technology or overuse of technology, it's also an issue. Yes, Anke, please.
Yes, this is Anke from Germany. So I just want to exchange quickly my experience. As I have been working since many years remotely from home with the whole world, for me, it was also first to step back and to understand why it's so easy for me to make my connections kids, you know, and why other people have so much issues with that, you know. So they were worried about the camera, you know, having a video conference. Oh my God, the camera can see me. So I need to remind myself to be prepared all the time, you know.
Sure.
So I think I have been a very good resource for my friends and colleagues also, to help them to come into the step, and also for my neighbor. She's a teacher, by the way. Yeah. And she's much more fit now in the technology. And I wanted quickly to share a nice story. For example, my niece, she is 13. Yeah. So she is having this offline schooling, of course, you know, doing herself. She has all the tools what she needs, and she's getting the homework, and she's working by herself. So it's very easy for her. And in the beginning, it was like this, that she was sitting in her room, making her homeschooling, and the parents, which have been also in the lockdown, they were in the living room sharing a table. And then it was lunchtime, and mom came into the room to the daughter and said, "Hey, Amelie, come on, lunch." And she said, "I'm sorry, I'm still in a phone conference." So it was really funny, because it was the opposite feeling. She felt so grown up, and she had really fun with the technology. There is a big understanding, of course, the parents helping her to come to this, and also using it very carefully, the technology, but she felt like grown up. Yeah, so
Absolutely.
and that was also a nice idea, you know, how to bring this closer to the kids. So don't be afraid about the technology, use it for its best. Yeah.
Thank
And
you,
I
Anke.
just wanted to share this one. And
Thank
she
you for
was
this
really
share.
doing her own phone conferences. It's amazing, you know, and she got the A grade now. So everything
Amazing,
fine.
amazing. And today, Larissa will share the voice of two youth. They are here with us, Andre and Olivia. And so, in a few minutes, you will hear from their voice, their experience. And please, just Larissa, be aware of time. And so, let's move on. Thank you.
Yes, but I think it's great to hear from all of you, and I'll definitely be super interested to read what you are writing in the chat. So I'll be reading for sure. But thank you so much to everyone for sharing. Just because of time, we will then move a little bit faster, because I really want to look at the highlights of the actual program we run, and more importantly, to hear what Olivia and Andre have to say. So you can go one more, Ilaria. Perfect. So last year, we started with the Foundation Dan Voiculescu. We started a program which was in non-formal education, and we look at developing a growth mindset through social emotional learning. So all the sessions that we did were 1 hour long. There were 8 sessions, and they were built on social emotional learning principles. In terms of the highlights of this program, something that I personally feel worked really, really well is that those who started, they also finished. And I remember that it was right before Christmas. So I was thinking to myself, who will come to session number 8 during Christmas? I'll be just by myself. And I was quite impressed and overwhelmed in a positive way with the fact that the students really attended. So that was really great. The session was scheduled very briefly. There were 8 sessions, 60 minutes each, and we were together for 2 months. It was a beautiful journey with the youth for 2 months. What I think it's really key to note is that they volunteered to attend. So it was nothing formal. They weren't receiving grades for this. They are just receiving a certificate of attendance, but they still wanted to go for it, which I thought it was quite impactful for me, at least. The key topics, because at the end of the program, I asked feedback for sure from them and throughout, but the key topics that were mostly important to them were what's the relationship between effort and success, and why is effort important in order to define that own success I was referring to? What is the role of mistakes and failure in the learning process? So we looked at not associating our own person with a potential failure, but including that into our growth mindset. And then we talked a lot about motivation and optimism. And these were actually the topics that were of the most interest to the youth attending the program. But I do have to say, speaking of technology, I've been really impressed by the level of trust, respect that the youth has had in this session. So very close to what Anke was saying is when they take almost like the responsibility of showing up into these sessions. They weren't talking one on top of each other. And I think even though technology has not always helped us, they were able to create a safe space for listening, exchanging, and sharing. And that was really, really powerful in the groups. So these were the highlights of the program. In terms of the challenges, there's no need to go again around it, but technology has been at times an opportunity for us. When it comes to approach to online sessions and meaning, I would say this was a challenge in the sense that the children were not from the same classroom. So it just takes a different time to adjust and to get to know with a new group. And also, if you cannot see all the other kids in the group, you may not always be that willing to turn on your camera. Or you may not have confidence whether the background in your house is the background that you'd like. Or sometimes the technology wouldn't support a virtual background, etc., etc. So that I felt like it was a challenge at times because I had to really get myself comfortable with just connecting a name to a voice. And that's how I knew they were there. And I think another challenge for this program, but I see it as an opportunity, is could we at a certain moment in time integrate a program around growth mindset in the formal education system in Romania and all across? I know that there are some private schools or there are places somewhere else in the world where these things happen. But I think this would be an opportunity moving forward. This was the program we created, and what I thought for today, for the next 5 minutes or so, I thought it would be useful and interesting to hear a little bit from the two of the students in the first round who have completed this program, and just to learn a little bit from them. So Andrei and Olivia.
Well, more than 5 minutes. What we want to do with Andrei, I
That's
think so.
great.
I can give them a little bit more. And I hope the adults here, the educators, the teachers will ask them also questions after their stories, because this is really an opportunity. We never had youth with us, at least at 6 Seconds Europe, for tons of reasons. And so this is actually the first time that we have the honor actually to have youth with us. And so we are here to listen to your experience, Andrei and Olivia. And I don't know if it's better that I stop sharing and so we can see all together, because I don't think we need slides, right, Larissa?
No, we do not need slides.
So we can see all of us together.
I will engage. I will engage with them, and they will share with you. First of all, I'm just super grateful that both of them have accepted to come, and I really hope they'll enjoy this experience. So, Olivia and Andrei, you choose who goes first. You know, we decided it's your choice. I'm not gonna go about it. But do you mind if you share with our colleagues here, why did you choose to attend the Growth Mindset program?
I want to be first.
Go, go, go.
I decided to go for this program thanks to the name Growth Mindset. It attracted me and suggested the fact that I will have many benefits. That's how it was. The decision was influenced by the free time after school, which I choose to use in my favor.
So it was the free time after school that got you into the program.
Yes, yes.
Lucky me then. Andrei, what about you? How did you decide to go for the program?
Well, the course for me started as a joke. At first, I didn't believe in the idea of growth mindset. In fact, I really joined it because I didn't have things to do better with my time because of COVID, and because I was curious the idea of growth mindset, what they are going to teach you, how to think better, a new perspective of things, maybe, who knows. But I wasn't with the idea before. It wasn't the name, it wasn't the subject. It was more like a joke. Let's say what it happens. It was pure curiosity, let's say, what made me join.
Thank you, Andrei. And I remember the first time when we talked about this and your answer. Yes. Now, I think what may be useful that we share is what were your key learnings from the program? Because I have shared a little bit about the topics that were highlighted by the other colleagues, but what did the two of you really learn from growth mindset with social emotional learning?
I will let Olivia go first.
Okay, thank you. This course developed me, and it added new important pieces in my personality puzzle. I learned many things. The first one was that I learned to look at everything from several perspectives. Not every failure represents an impossibility to follow my dream. It's actually a step forward. The second one was the fact that it's okay to be different, and we must be proud of that. I have a quote from the group. Fortunately, we all are different. The third one is that we must never lose our curiosity. The fourth thing was the fact that feedback matters is constructive. The fifth, I learned that we must make an effort to fulfill our dream. And the last and the most important thing is the fact that a flexible and constructive mindset is much better than having a fixed mindset.
Very, very clear and very structured, Olivia. Thank you for that. Yes, we are listening, Andrei.
Well, I didn't learn something new in the classical way, let's say. What really happened at the course was that I gained a new perspective about the things I've already did. For example, we had an exercise, or more like a checkup. Every day at the start of the course, we had to add a paper and write two questions and answer them. What did you feel? And what's the first thing you think right now? And at the beginning, I had a joke in myself that every time I wrote something negative about it, just to laugh myself, why are you here? How do you feel? Stupid because I'm here and now I'm not outside. And with time, without even knowing subconsciously, I've changed my answer course by course. And what happened was at the end of the course, I put all my papers of all the answers for curiosity, and I watched them from the first day to the last day. And something quite, let's say, magical happened, was that I've changed my answer without even noticing, because at the first day, I was negative about a thing I didn't even know what was about. And at the end, I was happy because I did that thing. And that was the thing that made me this course realize, was that I was negative about a thing I didn't even know what was about, really. And when I really understand it, when I really gained a new perspective of that thing, it changed my mind, because that was the problem all along with me, was that I always thought negative things about new things. I always follow the book, and this perspective, this way of thinking, this is like the magic of this course, and I think that made me join in.
Andre, amazing. Your English teacher is also online, Adriana. And so she's sharing with us that she's so happy. She was so happy to have you in the class. So it's a fantastic moment that we have also teachers and students today from the same classroom that can share. And Adriana, thank you for putting this chat. And I had a chat also with Adriana yesterday. So please keep texting your feelings. And Andre, and sorry just to interrupt you, but if we can ask you now, how are you feeling now, you presenting at this conference, you, Olivia, and Andre, what would you say? What kind of feelings?
I feel fantastic, really. I'm a bit quite, I've got to say the truth, I'm a bit nervous, really. I've never done this before. But I feel so wonderful that I can finally tell those things to people who actually care, who actually want to listen to my ideas. And that's the most wonderful thing. And I'm really happy that I can present these ideas with you, everyone from all over the world.
Thank you, Ray.
Olivia, how do you feel right now?
I'm so glad to be here and to hear a lot of perspective from everyone about all of this problem.
And I'm really happy that you are both here. Remember, we were saying before we started, let's just have fun. And I'm pretty sure whoever joins this conference wants to hear what you guys have to say. It would have been really nice to bring all the kids. I mean, who knows next time? Yeah. But that was a good start. The way I'd like us to perhaps conclude the piece around insights, if that is possible. I know that Olivia and Andre, they do have a message. They have a message for the youth of Europe, and they do have a message for the adults of Europe. So if you don't mind, if we can take 2 more minutes and listen to that message. Can we do that?
Of course we can. We have to. Andre told us, please listen to us. And we are here to listen to you guys. So go ahead, Andre and Olivia.
Olivia,
yes.
You want me to go first?
No, I was expecting that you'd say.
Yeah, I wanted to say Olivia should go first.
Yeah, by now I know you very well, so I know we will go with Olivia first.
Okay, thank you. The first message I would like to send to the youth of the Europe is to spend their free time in their favor, so that it will benefit them. The second one is that whenever they have the opportunity to participate in a constructive course, such as growth mindset, in my case, not to miss, just go. Believe me, it will help you. The last and the most important is to pursue on their own development, to be proud of their personality and qualities and areas of improvement. Try to work on them. Nobody's perfect. But all this without comparing yourself with the others. And my first message for the adults is that they could listen more to their children. If you are a teacher, listen more to your students, as they have creative ways to get to a solution. The second, it would be a good thing not to compare their children with others. Listen more to them. The third one is that encouraging, providing emotional support, congratulations. And finally, the last and the most important, youth need attention and patience.
Thank you, Olivia. Thank you.
I have to say that I'm like quite emotional right now. Thank you, Olivia, for being so kind and so giving and so empathic in your speech. Andrei, tell us.
All right. My message to the kids of Europe is one, really simple, yet I think so effective, is that they should try new things. For example, we live right now in the 21st century. Lucky us. There are lots and lots of opportunities right now. But the problem is, or more to say, the dilemma is that we still follow the book that was passed from our parents and grandparents. And that's not the problem, really. The dilemma is that book makes us follow just one way. And it makes us scared of trying something new. And someone like a friend or a family member offers you like, hey, do you want to try this course? Or hey, I do this thing part-time. You want to try it? You deny it instantly because you are scared of it. You don't like it. It's not the book. You deny it. You make jokes about it like it's stupid or something, like I did. And it's quite wrong, not because the course or hobby is necessarily good. Maybe it's bad, but what do you lose if it's bad? You gain experience. If you don't do it, you just lose experience, bad or good. My quote is, from every experience, you can learn something new after all. And the idea of just being stuck at one way, of thinking one way right now, when there are lots and lots of possibility. In the past, I didn't care about this, but right now, it scares me. And if you don't, and that's my message, really, try new things. Don't deny them. And if you don't like them, your life doesn't stop there after all. And for the adults of Europe, I would suggest one thing, as with the kids, as with the message for my for teenagers, is not to overlook the kids. And this kind of happens, sadly, to parents and teachers. But I'm not here to make a philosophy about how this happens. I'm here to say how you can make it better. With parents, you'll be, to make this better relationship, to not overlook your kids, just listen more. Try to create a relationship. You don't need to be friends with your kids, really. You just need to have a relationship with them. Don't build a wall that separates you, the kid always being wrong and the parent always being right. Create a relationship, a way to discuss it, and that's communication. And with teachers, you should try really to discuss more, communicate more about ways of resolving problems, making activities of different ways. I have lots and lots of great ideas from all over Europe and my friends, but there's sometimes they don't happen because teachers overlook, and adults in general, and that can affect the way of learning and the mentality of a kid. It can decrease empathy, because we talked about it in the green card. And if we just don't overlook them and try to create a teacher-student relationship, of son or son-daughter relationship, to not overlook them, I think it will be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrei. Thank you so much. You have been two wonderful testimonials, definitely amazing. And there are comments in the chat. Thank you. Please read the comments in the chat for you, and we will listen more. And Anke, we need to take maybe just 2 minutes. Catherine, what do you think? 2 minutes break now, maybe, just for people maybe to go and have a glass of water, or just, to stretch a little bit, and then we will start with the second panel. What do you think?
I think probably people are going to need about 5 minutes, so come
5 minutes
here for 1:45 your hour, please.
May I just quickly
Larissa,
close?
please, yes.
Please. I just really hope that you have found some inspiration in these two young kids who have definitely inspired me, and I felt like it was appropriate then just talking about what we did at the growth mindset and just have the data that you actually get to listen to how they have experienced this, because at the end of the day it is about them. And if they go out there and they talk more about these things and they teach others as well, I think we will be in good hands in the upcoming years. So I hope this was a good experience for all of you. And once again, just to close off, I'm just super proud of the two of you. And I think this is the starting of us doing some more amazing things together. Very grateful, guys, for joining in.
It's really my
Definitely.
honor for
Yes.
participate here.
I
We are
just
so
We have a role model, here, Larissa, and two role models, Andre and Olivia. Thank you,
Yes.
all of you. Anke, thank you.
We
Yes,
are
I
so
just
glad.
want to show you this. I have this on my wall here, growth mindset. It's so important, you know, and you both are amazing. And I think those voices must be heard. So we must find a way that more people can listen to you both. Thank you so much for sharing this.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
too
you.
for listening.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
your attention.
Great. So please, all of you, is the recording on now? Yes, great. And so welcome back. This is the second panel. And the focus is connection. And we are so grateful to have with us Ruth Whiteside. And the questions that she will focus with her testimonial, Carl Elliott, will be around what's the connection between your work and education you want to see happening in your country. And Ruth is from the UK, from England. What are the ingredients for a great place to learn? Which drivers best support teachers and youth to integrate social and emotional learning into their classroom, school, and homes? And Ruth, just a short bio to share with you. Ruth taught for 20 years in primary schools, including 12 years in a senior leadership role. Then she left teaching to concentrate on developing teachers through coaching and mentoring, with a focus on building resilience and exploring emotional intelligence. And Ruth's experience includes 8 years at a mainstream primary school with provision for children dealing with emotional and behavioral difficulties. And her knowledge and understanding of why resilient and emotional intelligence are key to a greater understanding of self and others is what she will also share with us today. And Ruth is a preferred partner, 6 Seconds preferred partner. She's a trainer. She's a good friend of mine. I have to say, and I'm very, very glad and grateful that Ruth, you are here with us. And please also introduce your testimonial that is Carl with you today. And please just tell me next slide when you're ready to move on.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Ilaria. Yes, Carl, would you like to introduce yourself? I've brought Carl along today because we've done quite a bit of work together looking at what children need. And Carl works in a provision for children with emotional and behavioural difficulties. So Carl, do you want to say a little bit more about that and introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello everyone. I work at a group of schools called in the northeast of England. We work with learners who have diagnoses of social, emotional and mental health through all stages of primary, secondary and post-16. And I work very closely with Ruth around about helping the staff to really understand the students' needs and to make sure we create a very safe environment for these young people to try to regain their sense of worth and ownership and sense of self moving forward.
Fabulous, thank you, Carl. Okay, can you move the slides on, Ilaria? Thank you. So one of the things, and this is all Carl, so he will tell you more about this in a moment, but the question that you wanted us to consider, what's the connection between your work and the education you want to see happening in your country, just is totally and utterly kind of answered by our #Brave campaign. Carl, would you like to talk more about it, because it's your baby, really?
Certainly, yeah. I think the two young people, Olivia and Andrea, actually have talked about this without even knowing about it, because it's very similar to what, and I think that was very, very kind of inspirational what they said. Brave is a way of actually introducing to teaching staff and letting them understand that there's elements around behaviour as a voice, reconnecting, and how to actually work with students in a more positive way. And it's very much about building them connections, maintaining them connections so they don't get ruptured, so you can have a very, very worthwhile and consistent environment in relationship where children do feel safe and feel like they belong. So as we go through the next
slide.
Please, yeah. The behaviour as a voice, I could talk for days as behaviour as a voice, because it's a massive passion of mine. But the behaviour of a voice from an early age, we talk about Gabor and Mate, myself and Ruth, an awful lot of the time, and talking about acting out your behaviours, and children at early age act out behaviours and act out how they're feeling, and they introduce that language to the parents. But then I think that language gets forgotten about, and children, when they can't verbalise, and either they can't find the words, or they're in the different mindset, they can't actually verbalise what's going on, that behaviour is still evident. And that behaviour is seen as these children get older as misbehaviour, should I say, and I never use that word, but it's something which it's classed as. And the behaviour, if we look at the behaviour in three main ways, is disruptive or violent, anxious, or depressive and dissociated. And inside with that behaviour, there's all this stuff going on in this child's brain that is really the answer. It's a lot of people treat the cough without looking at the cause, and I think that's the thing about behaviour, is looking at what the real system is going on inside the child's brain, and to then act on that rather than acting in a way to try to suppress the behaviour, and then that behaviour then becomes something which is shameful.
Can I just interrupt there, Carl? Because you were just talking there about Gabor Mate, and I've just put in the chat who that person is. I don't know whether anybody's come across him on this conference today. He's an author, he's a psychotherapist, he does lots and lots of conferences, lots of talks. He's just brilliant. He's like the granddad we all want. But he's very much focused around the idea that stress, toxic stress, can really impact on the developing brain, but also on the developing physiological body, and how that impacts later. So when we have young people who we think are, as some people say, unteachable, what actually is going on with them that causes that behavior and manifestation? And if you can take it away from the punishment side of things to a more compassionate view of what's happened to them, for them to behave in that way, then you're in a much better position to be able to make those connections and work with them. So I would thoroughly recommend everybody look up Gabor Mate, have a look at the chat, because I've written his name in, but he's completely brilliant. Sorry, Carl.
Thank you.
And just to quickly add, because if we talk about Gabor Mate, I would be here for hours. Just to add as well about everything that we're talking about, brave, is also can be reflected back inside ourselves. So it's how we approach situations, but how we look at ourselves, because teachers' own understanding of their behaviour can help them recognise exactly what's going on inside themselves. And a lot of the time, teachers, when they see situations that they might judge as being incorrect, judge that with their own kind of bias, and actually looking without that bias, because the window of tolerance for teachers does get reduced significantly throughout the working day, by having teachers to really look at and say, what is the real thing that's bothered me here, and what does this really mean, rather than judging on their own values. Is that then, as we'll talk later on a bit about Dan Hughes, he talks about blocked care and blocked trust. And in that relationship, when that happens, that blocked care, the teacher will see a child as an enemy, and that then really starts to rupture the relationships and lead to a situation where you know, exclusion and other quite devastating outcomes.
And it is actually, it is something that happens often when you say that teachers see the students just like enemies instead of allies. It can happen, and this is something that not only when kids have serious issues, also with kids who normally, let's say not normally, how do you say, when you know, are not unteachable, as you said, Ruth. And this is so important, Carl. Thank you for sharing this piece.
And I think one of the really interesting things that Carl's just said there, and Catherine's written it in the chat, we often approach situations with our own perspective, which can have devastating outcomes. This is where EQ comes in massively, because if we as adults, as the teachers, as the senior leaders in a school, have an understanding of what makes us, why we think the way we do, why we behave as we do, why we take specific actions as we do. If we have that level of awareness, we can then start to think about, well, what's the impact? And if the impact is not going to have the greatest of outcomes on our young people, then we need to change what we do. So for me, this is where the EQ bit really ties in. Thank you, Carl. Okay.
Do you want me to go to the next slide?
Yeah. So on this one, it's moving on with the brave and about actually the interpersonal connection you have with the child. So going back to again what Olivia and Andrea said about, the emotions are real and they very are real. And a child really wants to be themselves at school and they want to be themselves, but if their behavioural actions, which are a lot of the time are unconscious actions, are then leading to them losing that attachment with the teacher, they will then change and hide themselves. And they'll hide themselves in a way that internalise the feelings, and it then can lead to some quite devastating situations. And the real way that we can understand some students is by having this attunement and matching them physically as well as matching them in the words that we use. So sometimes you say to a child, I totally understand, but they don't get it. They might not understand that. They're being the lower part of the brain, which is very emotional, and they're not listening to the words. But as Dan Hughes says, and he has in his PACE approach, which we'll talk about, you match the effect, you match the prosody of voice and the valiance and the salience of the voice. And that can then really hit the polyvagal receptors of the child can really then receive that information and actually feel they're being listened to rather than hear they're being listened to. And that kind of connection really starts building that interpersonal relationship with the two different people, which then helps to bring that child from the downstairs brain to the upstairs brain.
Can I jump in? Sorry, because I love this concept about the upstairs and downstairs brain. And it's Dan Segal, isn't it, Carl, I think, who came up with this concept. So this is the sense that, you know, when a child, well, any of us adults, when we are in stress mode, or when we're panicking about something, or when we've just had a really bad day, what kind of is triggered is the amygdala at the back and the bottom of our brain. So the downstairs part of the brain. And as we, but what we really want to be employing when we're kind of tired and stressed and all the rest of it is actually all of our thinking capacity to support us when we are in those moments. But actually what happens, the amygdala takes over. And so we end up quite often as adults, and certainly as kids, doing things that perhaps you look back on afterwards and think, oh my God, that was such an awful thing to do. How do we move from the downstairs part of our brain to the upstairs part of the brain? How do we kind of integrate the two? And again, this is, you know, for me, what always comes back to emotional intelligence, because it's recognizing what's happening to you, that the stress indicators, the things that bring on stress, recognizing those patterns and preempting them. But you can only do that if you're really self-aware. And you can only be self-aware if you understand the language and use the language of emotional intelligence. And if you can recognize your triggers, you can then take steps to prevent those triggers from happening. But this is all about EQ again.
And Ruth, just to add, and then we move on, because Catherine also popped in the chat, Daniel Siegel, and Siegel also taught us that neuroscientific, not only him, scientifically, the brain is in development. So please consider that youth are still developing their brain, and their prefrontal cortex is not complete, fully complete. So also the kind of competencies, empathy, motivation, and consequential thinking, and other competencies are not fully expressed because their limbic brain is predominant still. But if we do not know these things, how can we better relate, better have this kind of attunement that Carl and Ruth are sharing? So thank you for this piece of information, because this is core and key to this discussion.
Thank you. Okay, Carl.
Just quickly add as well, I would strongly advise the polyvagal research. There's something called the vagal brake, and like what Ruth's saying, that vagal brake is that thing where you hold back when you get that alert in your amygdala, but you don't react. And the more you can strengthen that vagal brake, the more that these children can actually start to help regulate their own emotions. But in order to do that, they need to be regulated with someone else to then learn how to regulate themselves, which is where the attunement comes in.
Yeah.
Okay.
And moving on to the later part, which is the actual experiences and emotions. Ruth and I talked massively about shame, and shame is the most detrimental thing, especially in an educational setting. And unfortunately, I still see in environments it being used, not my personal environment, but other environments that I go to. And it can actually block. It is intensely painful feeling, which is aimed at the child, but not the action. And that can then really be detrimental to the child's feeling of self-worth and self-esteem. And interesting is the child that pushes you away needs you the most. So actually, if you then shame them and use their behavior as shameful, you're pushing them further away and you're breaking that connection that you need. And the interesting thing that about a trauma-informed approach is if you go away from shame and you are just uncompassionately accepting of the child's behavior, you know, the amount of chemicals and the hormones that you can create in a child's brain of happiness, the, you know, dopamine and the oxytocin and the opioids that you can create in the child's brain are like, they facilitate more social interactions. They make that child more belonging in it and feel that worth. And then you can then lead them rather than trying to punish them. You can lead them into better actions to take next time.
Absolutely. Can I just interrupt here? Something that has stayed with me ever since I witnessed this was a head teacher of a school I was working at several years ago now. Unbelievably cross with a boy in year 6, so just about to go to secondary school, and he was being, you know, he was being hard work. It was the fear of transition to secondary school. It was the fear of the summer holidays, 6 long weeks without the routine of school. He was struggling, and he was behaving in a way that was really kind of basically pushing his head teacher's buttons. And I will never forget her yelling in his face that he was a waste of space. And that, I think, is probably the moment where I thought, this is why would you? And it's that element of shame. Adults very often use that kind of language to shame children and young people into behaving in ways that they think they want, but a child isn't going to respond positively to something like that, you know. And it's that age-old thing of saying things like, you know, how could you? And that immediately, you know, if we hear that as adults, we immediately feel that burns us to the core. The damage that does to a child and to their developing brain and sense of self and self-worth is enormous. And I think it's really important that we've got to get that right in schools.
Yeah, and
Sorry, Carl.
And if I can add, I think also that shame is strictly connected to guilt. And so it triggers, after feeling ashamed, it triggers the sense of guilty that in a child can be unbearable. And the sense of guilty then, of course, triggers rejection. and then, you know, kids can develop, as we were putting in the chat, this kind of trauma, of course, that they experience, and then of course they impact the whole life, actually, when they grow up. So yeah, thank you.
Just to quickly add, it's a simple language we can use, because a lot of the time you ask a child, why did you do that? And they don't know why they did that. They have no unconscious recognition of why they did that. But if you ask them what's happened to you to make that happen, or that, then that there takes away from the child, because actually a lot of these behaviors are a representation of survival behaviors from the past experiences. So they've been programmed a certain way, they act the same way because it kept them safe.
And there's a beautiful comment here from Lorraine and Claire also, saying, you know, we probably over these years, we gave much more importance to self-esteem instead of self-compassion. And it's probably true. I agree on this, or at least we should develop both. And as Carl said, asking kids, not why did you do that, but what maybe you felt also, and what you thought, and the actions, so the TFA that we all share. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, do you want the next slide, Carl? Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, so
I'll just explain a little bit about the trust. The bunch of schools that I work for, and we have an ethos of parenting across the trust, and this has facilitated the brave approach and everything else that we do, because that strong parenting ethos goes around the environment. And one of the developments that we've actually moved forward with is pushing this into a smaller centre and making what we call the sanctuary, but the name at the moment is called the Sanctuary Centre. And this is going to be a very, very focused, trauma-informed environment for those children whose needs are, you know, very challenging. We are finding now that a lot of children come to us with comorbidity with SEN, but also a lot of mixed experiences in the past that have created them to be barriers to education, so that's it.
Yeah, and you know, when Carl's talked about, because I'm on the working committee for developing the sanctuary, and again, it's this whole idea that we have to be the models of the behaviours that we want to see in our children, because we value those behaviours. But what is quite staggering is, as adults, it's very often a case of do as I say, not as I do. And actually that's so reductive. And so if we want kids to be learning how to manage in these difficult times of ours, we need to give them the skills. And so we have to model them both implicitly and explicitly. And kind of the idea around the sanctuary is that it gives that really specialized provision. So it's it's going to be a fantastic place when it opens, isn't it, Carl? Yeah. Okay. Yes, so Carl, I will let you explain about the neurosequential model of therapeutics, because it's
well, this is the process that we are developing, and we are really training to get an understanding of, so we can apply this to the sanctuary. The brain develops from the bottom up, and again through Dan Siegel's work we understand that, but each part of the brain has a certain element of work which we need to focus on, and any, say, where certain areas of the brain haven't developed, we need to focus on them areas of the brain to actually make them work. Now, we're already doing this throughout the trust in meeting milestones. So we log all the students' milestones to help them meet them at certain points in their life. And if they don't meet these milestones, they can target them and move them forward. And the neurosequential model is using that bottom-up approach to use the likes of, you know, play and rhythm and somatic experiences to then move into the emotional part of the brain and use psychoeducation and, you know, effect labeling to really then help these children understand what's going on with them, and then move to the higher part of the brain and then develop the higher thinking skills that they need to move forward with their lives. And using the regulate, relate, reason to do that, we can help actually to, I hate the word repair because it makes it feel like something's broken in the first place, but with learners with trauma, they're forever changed, never broken. And it's that situation where, you know, we need to stabilize these young people's brains. We need to get them in a place where actually they're no longer in a persistent state of fight or flight, and then move them into a state where they can actually link with their emotions, whether it's through play and they can talk through sand play, or they can do drawings or art and music and everything else, and then to move them to the higher part of doing where they can actually really reach the full potential.
I think what I think really fits beautifully with the model of a neurosequential therapeutics is the cartoon books on the left-hand side, which I don't know why I've done this, but I've said it's the 3 R's, it's actually the 4 R's. However, that aside, but as you know, in order for you to kind of work from the bottom up, you've got to be able to kind of relate to that young person. You've got to be able to co-regulate with them so they learn how to self-regulate. You've got to be able to spend some time potentially repairing what might be a slightly bumpy relationship because you've had to deal with some, you know, sort of issues, and once that young person is ready, it's then about reasoning. So then you're bringing in the higher order thinking skills, the stuff that kind of comes from kind of here in the brain. So it's that little book, the 4 R's, complements really well what Bruce Perry says about the neurosequential model.
And there was a great question, or an open question, I would say, probably the relationship. There's a triangular relationship here, and it's between the kids, the student, the teachers, and the parents. So the messages, the languages that are exchanged could be different. And that's why for us, emotional intelligence and developing social and emotional learning as a 360 approach involving the families, this can be one of the, you know, the ways to connect the 3 stakeholders here. And I think Carl and Ruth, you maybe agree on this.
Absolutely, and that was one of the concepts of the BRAVE campaign, is that it's not just about an intervention for the young people, it's actually about training for the teachers, the adults in school, but it is just as importantly about the families. So working with families to explore what's happening in their children's brains, you know, why children and young people kind of perhaps sort of, you know, erupt in a kind of volcanic fit of rage at what seems to us, the adults, to be the slightest little thing. So for us, it's really important that we are working with parents, because I think it was, I can't remember who it was who wrote the question, but she was saying, what happens if the parents don't agree? So that's why as teachers, as schools, it is absolutely on us to talk with the parents to bring them on board. We can't police what goes on in people's homes, of course we can't, but if we can at least build relationships with those families, you know, make them welcome in the school. And again, for me, certainly in mainstream UK schools, that's not always been the case. Parents have very often been kept at arm's length. That's getting better, I think, and certainly with Carl's school and the cluster of schools that Carl works in, parents are absolutely part of the solution, aren't they, Carl, in terms of working with those kids?
I totally empathise with the comment that if parents don't get on board, what can we do? Because it is a challenge. I think what especially where I understand is that if the child gets excluded from education, the parents get excluded from education as well. And the trauma that the child goes through, losing the attachments from the school, the parent goes through, they become disillusioned the same as the child does. So, but in the shame shield, we talk about the shame shield with parents and we openly say, you know, there's no shame here. The experiences that happened in the past, that happened in the past, we've got a different approach. We are open to this and to go through that. And actually the next slide we will talk about the parent, child and teacher relationship through the so this approach is an approach used here by teachers as a way of creating a therapeutic environment, but also involve the parents, and you can sit with the parents and you can go through their concerns as a parent and their maybe attachment style as a parent, and then you can have conversations with the parent, the child, and sit there as a practitioner and discuss their relationship in a very calm kind of manner. And that shows us as not someone who's against the parent, but actually working in unison rebuild them relationships to make sure that connection stays stable. And I love the idea of the triangular relationship, because relationships can get tense, and if it's like a string and it gets pulled, it snaps. If you can make sure there's a triangular relationship, there's always one key attachment there for that young person that they need at a time of difficulty. And the DDB approach uses the PACE model. And again, Dan Hughes, I'm a huge fan of Dan Hughes, and I recommend anything that you can watch or read and do any training with him. Using the playfulness when you approach a situation, if a child's going into a state of arousal and is starting to get a little bit out of the calm state of social engagement, accepting everything. The child may feel like they hate the teacher, they hate the school, they hate the parent. You don't argue back. The child feels that way. They're entitled to their emotions, they're entitled to their feelings. Curious about why they're actually feeling that way. Empathetic about how sad they're feeling or how upset they're feeling, and use that cycle to continue to go around until you can really to understand what the child's feeling. And then you can use that effect labeling, and you can say, well, actually, you were angry. I'm wondering, were you a little bit sad before you got angry, and this and that? And you can create a narrative for that child to understand the situation with a different perspective. I've seen staff who've been trained on level 1. We're currently moving to get the level 2 training in place. But I've seen de-escalate students who have gone into the state of alarm, almost into crisis, in 5 minutes, where normally that would take 10 to 20 minutes. So this approach works fantastically to help co-regulate a child's brain.
What I think is so brilliant about this model is that this is, it's EQ, isn't it? Being playful, accepting, curious. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if this isn't emotional intelligence, then what is? And I think for us as adults, it's really hard, especially if we are faced with, and I'm thinking probably more so in mainstream, where it's time pressures are perhaps more acute, in the sense that you've got a class of 30 kids, you've got one child who's at crisis point. How does the adult in that classroom kind of maintain this pace process of playfulness, acceptance, curiosity, empathy? But actually, that, I would say, is something that we really need to be working on. The research shows, is really great at being able to de-escalate situations for the adults as well as for the kids. And this is why I think it's so important that as adults we buy into this. You know, even if we're not quite sure about it ourselves because we haven't read around it or we haven't seen it in action, being open to it is absolutely crucial in getting it into classrooms in the UK particularly. But it's, I mean, it just fits beautifully with the 6 seconds kind of competencies around kind of understanding your own emotional literacy, around self-direction, around, you know, self-management. And it's just a great model of working.
Yeah, and I would like to highlight for all the participants here, the role in this model. I particularly love the find meaning and new meaning. In general, we talk a lot about empathy, and empathy now is very much into a lot of models. But meaning and purpose, that we will touch with Nomira Mraziane in a bunch of minutes, it's also a key concept. I mean, living and engaging students and parents and teachers in something meaningful, finding meaning, and, you know, and creating, shaping together new meanings is fundamental. And it's part of, as Ruth said, the 6 seconds model about, you know, give yourself and drive, give a direction to yourself, having values and a kind of light that you can follow and share with others. So yeah, I think it's very connected to this.
Okay, so if we go to the next slide, we have got I don't think we've, have you, Catherine, have we got the Mentimeter? Or is that on the next slide?
Is it here?
Yes.
Okay, Catherine. So what we really wanted to do was give you, find out from all you guys attend the conference what you think is necessary to bring social emotional learning into the classroom, into the wider school community, into homes. And we've got, you know, lots of thoughts there. But what we'd like you to do, if you have a look in the chat, there is a link to Mentimeter, and the code that you need to, so go log on to Mentimeter, and if you type in the code 5551909, and what I love about this is that it creates a Wordle, so we can see what we as a group feel are the most important things, because those will be the words that kind of jump out at you from the Wordle. So, so if everybody could log in.
I just say you just either use the link that Abdullah has put into the chat, or if you're working on a different device and you want to go in using the website and then the code, you just go to www.menti.com and then you put in the code number that Ruth has given you. The quick way to do it is just to click the link in the chat.
Sure.
We will show the results in real time.
Which is fab, yeah. And I do love Mentimeter. I do think it's like, it's magic.
Absolutely, it's a fantastic idea.
So it'll give you the option to think of 3 things that you think are most important for getting, you know, what we need to be put into schools in order to bring social emotional learning.
Yeah. So let me ask this, then maybe we can let me stop sharing. So maybe with the result of the Mentimeter, then Tula maybe, or who is actually working on the outcomes, then you can share, so we can see all together the piece of information. The world, though.
It's needs to be, Ruth, it's your account, so you need to share it.
Oh, I need to share it. Oh, okay.
So you just go to, you don't go to Menti, you go to Mentimeter.
Mentimeter, yeah, I will do that.
And then you just make sure you're logged in, and then you go to your presentation, you click your presentation, click present.
Okay.
And then share your screen.
Okay. Just bear with me while I do this. It's like, oh, I've actually got to technology live to a global audience.
Well, let's navigate our emotions and use optimism.
People are thinking and writing in Menti.
Brilliant. Oh, this is okay. So
it's the time to do this.
How do I? So
So are you in Mentimeter?
I mean, and I can see the thing, the
presentations.
Yes.
Now press present next to the my presentations, and that should bring up the live page.
Look at that.
And then what you do is just share your screen.
Share my screen. Okay. Of
this
course.
Is so exciting.
It is. If only I kind of knew what I was. I can't find.
You're doing it. You are doing it.
So can you see that? Can you see?
So you need to share your screen.
Yes, but
Zoom.
Okay, I'm doing it. I've worked out what I need to do. Right. Okay. So share, and it is here. Can everybody see that? Brilliant, fabulous. Okay, and
changing in front of our eyes.
That is amazing. Yes, exactly. Look at that. We've got some amazing comments there. I think certainly for me, what I think is really fabulous is just curiosity is the one that comes up top. What does that say to you, Carl?
I would 100% agree. I think curiosity is, I very much say the reason why. Everything has a reason why. If you ask why enough times, you get to the real reason. But constantly being curious about what's going on is staff. And this comes from leadership all the way down, that leaders ask why staff are maybe struggling, and then staff can ask further, and it goes all the way through an organisation.
Yeah. And of course, the curiosity bit then leads to the training, because as soon as you start to work out, there's a link, there's a correlative reason here, then it's about finding the appropriate training that will allow you to explore that. But I love, there are so many great comments on here that I think are absolutely 100% what we need in our schools. Empathy is another big one there, isn't it? and support. So what's lovely about this is I'll be able to share, keep this, won't I, Ilaria? So then we can send it out to you guys if you want a copy of it.
Yeah, I also took actually a screenshot, and so also you can take a screenshot and we can share if you all agree. We will share on social media because definitely this is a great piece of information. And also, you know, in here there are feelings, there are thoughts, there are really also actions that we can take in order, as programs, for example, and professional development for teachers, and then developing social emotional learning in terms of emotions and everything that we can bring to schools.
Absolutely. And what I think would be so amazing would be to repeat this Mentimeter with, say, a group of teachers in the UK to see what they come up with and to see if there's any difference. I would hope that there wasn't, but who knows? I suspect the biggest issue for UK teachers would be time. I suspect that would be one of the ones that would come up highest, but that might be my presumptions. Okay, so fabulous. Thanks for involving yourselves in that, everybody.
Thank you, Lou, for this interaction. So you can stop sharing and I can share.
Brilliant. Okay, so if we go back to the next, thank you.
Absolutely. Let me go to full screen. Just a second that I move this out of the way. So otherwise I don't see. A second. Okay. 2 seconds here for all of you.
Thank you. So the question for me, you know, I'd written for whom, because I feel very strongly, I know Carl kind of agrees as well, that it's about the adults actually, because we can't deliver a social emotional learning curriculum of any sort if adults aren't on board with it and don't have some understanding of what that is. And I know that some of you will have already seen Lorraine Martinez's book, which is absolutely fantastic. Here we go
again.
Yeah, yes.
And there are 2 books from Lorraine. Lorraine Martinez is one of our former 6 Seconds colleagues, and she's an amazing author, and she works strictly with CASEL, the organization in the US who that actually is setting all the standards for social and emotional learning in academics, and is research based, and you can find a lot of resources at casel.org if you want to. It's quite American, US centered in terms of research, but it's absolutely one of the most important organizations in the field of social and emotional learning.
And what I love about Lorraine's book is she talks all the time about it starting with the adults, you know, so it's not a book to pick up, you know, excuse me, as a teacher, it's not a book to pick up and use as an intervention. It's actually a book for you to kind of absorb and start to think about, okay, so this is how I implement social emotional learning in my maths lesson. This is how I do it when I'm doing PE. So it's a really great book, well worth getting. And just as a little aside, I'm running a book club on it. So if you would like to join my book club virtual, then please do. I'll just send me an email. I'm dropping it into the chat box now. With Lorraine's permission, she's very excited. Very excited about the fact that I'm running the book club on it. So
we can also say that you will share a little bit about this during one of our community calls, probably the next one. And so please join our community calls on the Tuesdays, and you know when they are through our newsletter, but it should be probably the 31st of March, it will be the community call. So Ruth will also tell us a little bit more.
Great. So Carl, I just wanted to say, I mean, I know we've got a couple more slides, but I've got a copy of Teacher with a Heart and Mind for you, Carl, as a thank you for agreeing to appear today. So thank you. So we talk about, you know, what do we as teachers need? We need good mental health. We need to feel that we're being looked after, about having support, making those connections, working together. The big thing for me is sharing stories. And I think, Larissa, you were talking about it before, that we all have stories, and it's the stories that connect us. And something, an organisation that I would thoroughly recommend you all have a look at is it's called Narrative for They're American, but they do lots of work all over the world. And it's a storytelling exchange, and it's all about building empathy. And it works beautifully. And children use it, and grandparents use it, and organizations use it as a way of building empathy. So have a look at narrative4.com, completely brilliant. So I just really wanted to plug that, because I do think it's really worthy of us considering it as a means to make space for one another, because as we saw from the empathy card earlier, empathy is declining. Carl, would you like to say anything about this slide, or shall we move on to the next one?
The next one, please, Ruth.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
So just the ones that came to mind when Ruth asked me this question, and the main thing is about vulnerability in relationships. And I think I do a lot of reading around Brené Brown and that kind of thing about how, in order to be effective and staying open and engaged, you need to be vulnerable. You need to open that part of that brain up. And it's all due to the attachments that you build. Teachers, and this is all about leadership all the way down. That leadership, being vulnerable with their staff and showing their humanistic side, and also letting the staff to be vulnerable, that they can be open about stuff that's going on. Because education is a very, very difficult setting, and with the situation that's going on at the moment, COVID has presented such additional challenges, and we are in a total state of change. And some changes that happened in COVID have been great, like we've mentioned before, the remote learning is fantastic, and blended learning can work really well. We've seen students who don't feel safe in education attend remote learning 100% because they're in their safe environment. So there's things that came out of it, but I think also to move forward quite mindfully in the fact that the amount of pressure that's going on to teaching staff, and being open to their vulnerability so they can come across it and share their feelings and share what's going on. And again, which Ruth and I talk about with the emotional intelligence of the left and right side of the brain, to actually help leaders and everything understand the creative and the logical side, and what people need to actually function in educational practice. Some people might need everything written down in a sequential order and really understand that, but some people might just want to run with it, really understanding that. But also the supervision is key, and I think supervision for teachers in schools is something that will have to become more practice and common practice. We offer it throughout the trust as a drop-in kind of session across the teaching staff, because we deal with some quite emotional outbursts and emotional situations with students that staff need to face, and then before they go home, then they really need to release them emotions to someone else. And I think education and teachers and everyone to really use neuroscience is key. The information, the evidence out there for neuroscience now is open up aspects of the brain that are fascinating. And if we can understand how a machine works, we are then better fitted to actually work it and fix it. And it's the same with the human brain. If we can understand it, we can work better with it.
Brilliant. And I would just add to that I know in six seconds we talk a lot about the neuroscience that supports the research around EQ and why we need it, but just the mere fact that you can be having a conversation with somebody and realize that somehow you're standing in exactly the same position, you're physically mirroring, and that's reflecting what's going on inside your brains. The neuroscience around the whole hug. We know that in order for a hug to give real solace to somebody else is that you have to hold that hug for 20 seconds at least, and it needs to be a full-on, big, intimate, body-to-body hug. And that's because what happens if you are the one giving the hug, your heart rate slowly starts to work, starts to calm down the distressed person's heart rate. We don't know it happening. We don't experience a moment where we say, oh, look, I can feel my heart has regulated your heart rate. But that is actually physically what happens. But it's all around, kind of feel-good hormones, oxytocin, serotonin, all of those things working in tandem. And actually, this is, again, one of the things that we have certainly in the UK is that you must not touch a child as a UK teacher. And yet so often, even just you know, a touch of the shoulder can be enough to kind of bring somebody out of crisis. So I think, you know, neuroscience has potential to give so much to us in terms of how we teach and how we develop and how we grow both ourselves and others. So again, it's to me, that's the evidence base that we need in schools.
Yeah, and over this pandemic, sorry to interrupt you, this was probably one of the most terrible things, the fact that, well, around the world, probably we cannot maybe hug or, you know, especially in schools, or even though it depends on the countries and, you know, laws and everything, you know, this kind of protection, but also just look into each other's eyes and being able to interact through the mirror neurons. It's something that through a screen is definitely difficult, especially because you focus maybe only on the face and you don't see maybe the hands and the body posture and the movements. And this kind of connection, physical connection, is so important to establish a relationship based on emotions and on the mutual understanding of what is happening in that moment. And you can feel the other person through their body and their, you know, attitudes also. So yeah, it's so important.
Absolutely. So that's brought us right to the end of what we really wanted to say today. Carl, have you got anything to add to what we've talked about?
No, just to reinforce the mirror neurons, and also again I go back to polyvagal of the parasympathetic. So you said you can feel it, you can, your heart rate is warmer, and everything is actually automatic with all them feelings. And the big thing, I talk with staff about signs of safety, and we need to say them across the trust. So, you know, if you see a member of the leadership team walking down, they should indicate signs of safety that actually the staff are happy to see them, rather than they're coming down to my office for this. And there shouldn't be a sensation of fear. It should be a welcome sensation across the organisation to really get them relationships and, like you say, create them warm feelings that is going to make us work better each day.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much, Carl, for taking time out of your Saturday to come and talk alongside me today. I think it just really goes to show that education, certainly in terms of Carl's context with schools, for children with social, emotional and mental health difficulties, but schools generally could do with so much more of this. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Ruth and Carl. It was amazing. And please text in the chat, put in the chat your emails, so maybe people can directly contact you if they want to know more, if they want to replicate and maybe do something, activate themselves through your techniques and practices. This would be amazing. And you people, guys in this room, please just share your feelings, and of course you're very welcome to get in contact with us and with Ruth and Carl. So we will give you now a few minutes just to again to pause, and we are now at the third and last panel, and again, thank you for the two previous one, and we are looking forward to this, because also in this panel that is focused on purpose, we will have fantastic testimonials with Nomeda Maraziene, and the questions that she will guide us through are these ones. What does it take to thrive in education, and what change is needed in the long term? What does it mean leadership in education, and why and how educators' vision and EQ skills are core in an educational system? And Nomeda is one of our 6 seconds member who most actively used the educational vital signs model, and she will share her experience with us. And Nomeda is an EQ expert, consultant, and lecturer. She's a long-term, as I said, a 6 seconds member. She owns a master's degree in psychology, and she also she's also a licensed NLP trainer, an associate member of the NLP Society. She's one of the founders of the Leadership Expert Group organization in Lithuania. And for over 16 years, she has been working in adult coaching and training. And over the last decade, she also focused her passion and work on developing social and emotional learning in Lithuanian schools. So I think I can hand over to you, Nomeda. And if you want, I can stop sharing if you prefer. And so you can go ahead with your own presentation, also because Nomeda will share with us also videos and other resources. Thank you, Nomeda.
And thank you, Laria, for so nice introduction and saying good afternoon to everyone. I'm really impressed, and it's my honor and privilege to meet so many people devoted to emotional intelligence as a concept and its implementation as well, to make the world a better place to live. I hope and I believe, truly believe, that with our insights today, we will add some more gravity to this conference, and we will stimulate some even more reflections. What could we do? Why we are doing what we are doing? What change we could expect? And what the purpose, what the merit of every single action on a daily basis, practicing emotional intelligence. So really, I'm so happy and grateful. 6 seconds for our partnership, which actually started nearly 10 years ago. And still we have been working in a very close way. I need to admit that I'm a fan of really good, and saying good, I mean reliable, standardized, scientifically proven, proved tools for assessment. And when I found 6 seconds inventory, I was nicely surprised, very engaged, impressed, and eager to try. And when I did, that was like aha moment, like an eye-opener. You know, I realized what potential they contain and what possibilities I could bring to Lithuania, to my country. So that was one of the reasons I invested my time and energy, and nearly 8 years ago, the 6 seconds tools were translated into Lithuanian, and the Lithuanian norms were set. So still I work I spend more time and energy in business area. However, education area is very important for me as well. I mean, practicing and bringing the knowledge and training skills on EQ in that field. Because I feel especially responsibility working on EQ in educational institutions. The educators' emotional competence has to meet the highest possible standards, as the teacher is always in the children's center of attention. So today, with my greatest appreciation, I invited 3 ladies I met during my professional journey. They are school directors, and one of them is a program manager for gifted children. So they are, in my understanding, they are perfect examples of professionalism, of persistence, devotion, and definitely leadership. Together, we decided to represent the idea of purpose from 3 perspectives. To get a real picture how we understand the merits and what changes we are willing to create when implementing EQ in education. So several a bit more specific comments about today's 3 questions. The first one, the first presentation, I can state the success story. Also, this is a story about the persistence and daily work and practicing EQ in the whole community. I mean, including students, parents, educators, social partners, and all the others. The second one case is about the leader's role in education, how to deal with the team's resistance to changes, how to stay result focused, and how important it is to practice resilience and not to give up. And the third case, I think, and I believe, strongly believe, this is a perfect example of one person's passionate belief in the potential of emotional intelligence, about her clear vision, purpose, and commitment. Huge efforts resulted in a unique program for gifted children and their teachers. Children with extremely high cognitive intelligence, they require extremely high teachers' emotional intelligence skills. So the program implements special training for the educators, EQ skills and development. So to make it more authentic, the guests will present their thoughts in Lithuanian. And with us today, we have an interpreter. She is my daughter, Nora. With her help.
Welcome, Nora, and thank you so much for this.
So she will transfer the presenter's idea professionally. I appreciate Nora and the guests already in advance. So let's start from the first, and let me introduce you the first presenter, Mrs. Erika Vaidelienė. She's a director of school kindergarten Šviesa. We met with her nearly 6 years ago, and then we started a longitudinal emotional intelligence project, which included an EQ assessment for teachers, for students, the survey for microclimate, and debrief for parents and trainings for teachers. So how did it go, and what long-term results did the whole community achieve, and can we really very proud of? So Erika, the stage is yours.
Laba diena visiems, esu Erika Vaidelienė.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. This is Erika Vaidelienė, and she is the principal of Šviesa Kindergarten School in Lithuania.
Esu šios puikios mokyklos direktorė tik vienerius metus.
She has only been a principal for 1 year.
Tačiau galiu teigti, kad ji yra puiki bendruomenė, nes joje dirbu 10 metų.
But she has worked with the community for a total of 10 years, so she definitely knows the community and can say that it is great.
Galėčiau pasakyti, kad mokykla tai šeima.
She could even state that school is actually family.
Ir namai, į kuriuos šeima sugrįžta kiekvieną dieną.
And it's also a home that the family returns to every day.
Kitas. Galime sakyti, kad vienintelis kelias vedantis į pažinimą tai yra veikla. Veikla, kuria užsijama kiekvienas bendruomenės narys.
We could even say that the activity is only a road to knowledge, and this is the kind of activity that every member of the community carries out.
Ir tai yra mokytojai, tai yra tėvai,
parents,
ir
children.
Nueitas ilgas kelias, kuris mums leidžia šiandieną sakyti, valio, mes esame geriausi. Mes esame geriausi patys savo. Ir galime sakyti.
We have gone a long road, and at this point we can say that we are the best to ourselves, and we can acknowledge it for ourselves as well.
Ir galime sakyti, kad taip, mes mokytojai nuėjome patį ilgiausią ir sunkiausią kelią, nes mums reikėjo pažinti save.
And of all the roads taken, it was the teachers that had to have the longest road, because for them, they needed to explain and understand themselves.
Galim sakyti, kad tėvai nuėjo lygiai tą patį ilgą kelią, kad galėtų šiandien dienai pasakyti, mes galime dirbti kartu su mokytojais.
We can also state that the parents had the same long road, because now they can say, today we can work together with the teachers, so we had to take the same road.
Ir galim pasakyti, kad vaikai nuėjo už mus dvigubai sunkesnį kelią tam, kad parodytų tai, ką jie gali šiandieną.
And we can even say that the children's road was even 2 times longer than the parents and the teachers put together, because for them, it was the largest results achieved for this day.
Mes matom, kad mokytojai atiduoda save mokydamiesi.
We can see that the teachers give themselves when they are learning,
priimdami žinias iš kitų,
when they accept knowledge from others,
dalyvaudami jau bendruomenėje, su bendruomenė dalindamasi savo žiniomis,
and then later on when they participate in the community and share their knowledge with the community,
būdama ir bendraudama,
by being together and communicating,
ir visą tai atiduodama pačiam didžiausiam stebuklui pasaulyje vaikams.
and all of that is given and being done for the biggest miracle in the world, the children.
Kitas. Nukeliaudami vaikai ilgą kelią įgavo daug drąsos. Drąsos, aš galiu.
In their long road, children have gotten so much courage to say that I can do this and I'm able.
Aš galiu būti drąsus ir manim galima pasitikėti.
I can be courageous and I can be trusted.
Ir šioje vietoje ir tėvai buvo labai drąsūs, nes vaikus išleido išvykti į Romą atstovauti Lietuvai.
And at this point, the parents also showed a lot of bravery because they allowed the children to go to Rome and to represent Lithuania there.
Nors galėjo sakyti, jie dar maži, jiems dar tik tai 9, 10.
Clearly, the parents could have said no because the children were very small. They were only 9 or 10 years old.
Bet jie nemaži. Jie lygiai tokie patys dideli kaip mokytojai ir tėvai.
But they are most definitely not small. They're actually as large and big of a person as the teachers and the parents.
Ir keliaudami šiuo keliu mes tampame aktyvia mokykla.
And it is through this road that we become an active school.
Būdama aktyvi mokykla, mes esame ir aktyvi bendruomenė.
Being an active school also means having an active community.
Ir galime sakyti, kad aktyvi bendruomenė yra kiekvieną dieną.
And when we talk about active community, we talk about an active community every day.
Aktyvios bendruomenės 68% rodo, kad mūsų yra daugiau nei pusė aktyvių.
68% of active members in our community show that it is more than half of the members that are being active.
Ir tai kiekvieną dieną suteikia vis daugiau ir daugiau pasitikėjimo vaikams.
And that in turn provides more and more confidence for the children every day.
Ir tas pasitikėjimas juos veda į sėkmę.
This is a type of confidence that then later on leads them to success.
Aktyvi bendruomenė esame visuose srityse. Tai turime ir pasitikėjimą.
We are an active community in all fields. We have trust,
ir atsakomybę,
responsibility,
ir įsipareigojimą,
our engagements,
ir tarpusavio ryšį,
our connections with each other, and growth.
Ir turime pasidžiaugti, kad nesame tik viduriukas, kad esame daugiau nei vidurys, kuris galime šiandien dienai duoti savo, tėvam, vaikam daugiau.
And we are very happy to be able to say that we're not just average, we're way above average, and we can give more to our children, to our parents, and our teachers.
Čia matome mūsų vaikų, kurie nuėjo ilgą kelią, dalindamiesi ir mokydamiesi iš 6 seconds priemonių.
So here we see the changes in student achievements, and these are the students that have gone such a long road by sharing and learning the things that they have from 6 seconds tools.
Ir šiandien dienai galime džiaugtis, kad mūsų vaikai lenkia patys save.
For today, we can see that our children have actually exceeded their own achievements from before.
Ir jų rezultatai, jų pažanga yra akivaizdi.
And it is very obvious to see that their results, the things that they have achieved, are very obvious.
Šiandien dienai pasakyti, kad esame pasiekę 90% ar arti 90%, apima džiaugsmas kiekvieną iš mokytojų.
Knowing that we are now achieving around 90%, it gives pride and joy to every teacher in the school.
Ir kiekvieną kartą savo atsakydama į klausimą, ką aš galiu, tai galiu pasakyti, kad yra 3 pagrindiniai dalykai, ką aš galiu.
Every single time that I ask myself the question, what can I do? There's 3 things that I always can do.
Galiu matyti mokytoją, galiu matyti tėvus, galiu matyti laimingus vaikus. Taip užauga bendruomenė.
I can see happy teachers, I can see satisfied children, and I can see the parents getting involved. And this is how a happy community grows.
Nora, can you ask Erica, please, the age of the students in the previous research?
Erika, jūsų klausė tose tyrimuose, kur rodėt ką tik prieš tai, koks buvo vaikų amžius?
Tai yra 90 metų vaikai.
9 or 10 years old.
Thank you.
Ir šitie vaikai dalyvavo taip pat ir 6 seconds testuose nuo 8 metų.
So these children have carried out 6-second tests since they were 8 years old.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Erica.
Ačiū už atsakymą.
Ir aktyvi bendruomenė, tai ką turime šiandieną mes, tai yra tie žmonės, kurie gali apjungti visus, ir mokytojus, ir tėvus, ir vaikus.
And the active community that we currently have in our school, these are the people that can connect the children, the parents, and everyone else into a cohesive community.
Tai yra šviesuolio fondas, taip kaip mokykla šviesa, taip šviesuolio fondas.
Our school is called Šviesa, which means light, so we also have Šviesuolio fund.
Į kurį įdedame viską. Ir džiaugsmą tėvų, ir džiaugsmą vaikų, ir džiaugsmą mokytojų.
This is where we share the joy from parents, teachers, and students.
Ir galėtume sakyti, kad visų pasiekimų, visų pokyčių centre yra asmenybė. Ir ta asmenybė turi labai gerai pažinoti save.
It is very important and fair to say that at the center of any and all change is a personality, and that personality needs to know itself the best.
So, thank you, Erica, very much. I believe we will have some questions for you to address to you. But now I'm listening to you. I memorized one moment when the previous director, when I asked what change do you feel, what the most important change you created, she replied that you know, Nomeda, previously the success of organization depended on personalities, good teachers, but now the success of organization depends on a team. So I would like from my side to add that I see huge progress and I see a very, very strong team in school kindergarten Šviesa.
Ir norėjau pasakyti, kad kai šnekėjo su praėjusia direktorė, jūsų priminė prezentaciją, kad praėjusios direktorės, kai paklausė, kas pasikeitė jūsų mokyklai ar ko reikia, kad pasikeistų, praėjusia direktorė pasakė asmenybės, kad tai yra tam tikros asmenybės, kurios ką nors pakeičia. O dabar klausant jūsų, atrodo, kad situacija pasikeitė ir dabar nėra asmenybės, bet visi kartu kuriate savo mokyklą.
And please let me add just one thing, because without people like Erica, in schools around the world, leaders, so principals, head teachers, every one of us can be a leader. But without people like Erica as change makers, we cannot bring a change inside our educational systems. So really a big thank you for all these people working every day in the field.
Erika, jums norėtų padėkoti, nes be tokių žmonių kaip jūs, kurie ateina ir visas šitas idėjas išpildo ir dirba tiesiogiai su vaikais, jokios šitos idėjos nebūtų prasmingos.
Ačiū labai.
He's saying thank you so much for your kind words, Ilaria.
Thank you. There's an interesting question. Lorraine Fellows is asking in the chat and ask, did the children also have specific social and emotional learning lessons? So what kind of intervention was made, and were the details communicated to their families?
Erika, jums klausimas, ar vaikai turėjo kokias nors specialias emocinio socialinio mokymosi pamokas ir ar tos detalės visos buvo komunikuotos tėvams?
Taip, su vaikais buvo šnekamasi labai daug. Visų pirma, tai buvo šnekamasi su mokytojais, tada su tėvais ir tik tai tada su vaikais. Nes
There has been a lot of talking with the parents, but at first it was with the parents, then with the teachers, and only then they followed about talking with the children. So it was first discussed among everyone else and then just moved to the children.
Nes, kaip žinome, vaikai pirmiausiai sureaguoja į tai, ką sako mama, tėtis ir mokytojas.
As we know, children usually tend to react first to the things said by their parents, mother, father, or the teacher.
Ir tik tai tokiu atveju vaikai priėmė ne tai kaip atskirą pamoką, bet į kiekvieną pamoką integruojant, į pertraukas integruojant vaikams kalbėjimą apie emocijas, apie tai, ką jie gali daryti, kodėl jie taip gali daryti. Jie tuomet priėmė viską labai arti.
It was helpful for the children to actually not see it as a separate lesson, but for the emotional and social learning to be integrated into every lesson, into every break, so that it would be consistent altogether as a message.
Ir be abejo, apie pasikeitimą vaikuose visą laiką informuodavome tėvus, kaip keičiasi jų vaikai, ką jų vaikai daro kitaip.
And of course, when it concerned any type of changes in the children's behavior or in the way they were acting, their parents were informed consistently.
And one last question, and then we move on to the other testimony, but this is another important question. And Larissa is asking, what kind of, if you have, Erika, a message for other principals based on this success story, what would you like to tell them?
Erika, jūsų klausė Larissa. Jeigu būtų kiti direktoriai ir, aišku, jūs turit savo sėkmės istoriją, ką norėtumėt pasidalinti, kokią žinutę norėtumėt jiem pasakyti?
Norėčiau pasakyti, kad mokykla turi būti šeima. Ji negali būti institucija. Ji turi būti šeima. Ir tik tai toje šeimoje galės visi vienodų statusų gyventi. Ir mokytojai, ir tėvai, ir vaikai. Į mokyklą priimkim ne vaikus, į mokyklą priimkime šeimą.
Saying that school has to be absolutely a family. We should not be seeing school as an institution. And this is the only way, deinstitutionalizing school, where we can give a same status to the children, to the parents, and to the teachers. And we should, when admitting to school, we should not admit children, we should admit families.
How beautiful. Thank you, Erika.
Ačiū labai, Erika.
Ačiū Jums.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, probably we can move forward. And the second story, the second case, is about the leadership. I mean, true leadership in school. And here I asked Mrs. Rasa Mašurinienė, she is a director of the Klaipėdos Varpas Gymnasium, to share her insights. The first time I met Rasa was nearly 2 years ago. We had together a workshop on emotional intelligence for the whole team of educators. And what triggered me, what truly triggered, it was her persistency and the determined approach to make a change in the community's emotional culture. And this is why, together with 6 Second Support, we started a 2-year lasting emotional intelligence project. So here we are at the very beginning. The survey to assess the microclimate is made, and also the first grade students completed EQ assessment. And the assessment was followed by a debrief for parents, an online session. So what are the challenges for the leader? What are the ways to convey the message of equal importance to every member of school community? And what's Rasa's message? So Rasa, the stage is yours.
Labą dieną visiems, kaip jau Nomeda ir minėjo, su Rasa Mašulinienė iš Klaipėdos Varpo gimnazijos.
Good afternoon, everybody. As Nomeda has mentioned before, my name is Rasa Mašulinienė from Klaipėda Varpas Gymnasium.
Gimnazijos vadovė tapau prieš 5 metus, 2016 metais.
I became the principal of the gymnasium 5 years ago in 2016.
Ta diena, kai tapau gimnazijos vadovė, nežinojau, kokie iššūkiai laukia manęs kaip naujo vadovo. Pirmas džiaugsmas dėl puikiai besiklostančios karjeros po truputį pradėjo blėsti, kai susidūriau su daugybė vadovui įprastų, tačiau man dar nežinomų iššūkių.
On the day I became the principal, I did not understand the responsibilities and the challenges that will await me. And the early joy about the career started fading away when I started realizing the common but still unknown to me challenges and issues that I will have to face and deal with.
Dėl gimnazijos administracijos kaitos, besikeičiančių mokinių bei tėvų poreikių bei lūkesčių, dėl aplinkos modernėjančių procesų, aš supratau, kad pokyčių neišvengs ir mūsų gimnazija.
Due to the changes in administration, the changes in parents' and students' needs and expectations, and the society getting more and more modern, I understood that our school will not be able to avoid changes as well.
Kita skaidrė, Nomeda. Norėjau tikėti, kad mūsų Varpo gimnazija gali tapti besimokanti organizacija, kurioje bendruomenė galėtų kryptingai lavintis, siektis asmenybės ugdymosi, noro ir tobulėjimo ir taptų besimokanti organizacija.
I started believing that our gymnasium can become an educating and learning society. It can improve itself by educating its society and creating a desire for personal improvement, as well as becoming this status of learning community.
Žinoma, kaip ir visi vadovai, taip ir aš sulaukiau didžiulio mokytojų pasipriešinimo šitiem pokyčiams.
Of course, as many leaders trying to implement change, I found a lot of resistance in the teachers community.
Tada supratau, kad priimant ir įgyvendinant sprendimus, reikšminga tampa visos organizacijos bendruomenės narių įsitraukimas.
And that is why when I understood that when changes are made, it's very important that in the entire community in the gymnasium is a part of the changes.
Suvokiau, kad visų bendruomenės narių lyderystė yra labai svarbi, kad reikia auginti gebėjimą pasidalinti atsakomybę, kad reikia galimybę duoti visiems įsitraukti į įstaigos labui.
I understood that it is not just my personal initiative, but the initiative of everyone in the gymnasium that is very important, and that everyone should be given an opportunity to work for the gymnasium and do their part.
O tam reikalingi labai stiprus emocinio intelekto įgūdžiai.
Clearly, that needs very strong emotional intelligence skills.
Todėl mokykla įsitraukė į 2 metus trunkantį emocinio intelekto projektą, kurį vykdo 6 Second organizacija ir lyderystės ekspertų grupė, vedama Nomedos Marazė.
So this is why the school joined an educational program, which is a 2-year longitudinal EQ project that is carried out by leadership experts group with Nomeda Marazienė and 6 Seconds.
Šį projektą taip ir pavadinama asmeninė ir komandinė branda keičia visos organizacijos kultūros klimatą.
And that is why the name of our project is Personal and Organizational Maturity Changes the Emotional Climate of the Whole Institution.
Supratom, kad kiekvieno bendruomenės nario branda yra labai svarbi visai organizacijai.
We understood that the individual maturity of all of the members is very important for the organization.
Projekte dalyvauja visi mokytojai pirmų gimnazinių klasių mokiniai.
All of the teachers are involved and the students from the first gymnasium forms as well.
Kaip jau buvo minėta, įvyko gimnazijos mikroklimato tyrimas, mokinių ir mokytojų emocinio įsivertinimo tyrimai.
As we mentioned before, there was a microclimate test for the entire school, as well as personal EQ test for the students and the teachers.
Norėčiau pasidalinti mokytojos Viktorijos įžvalgomis apie emocinio intelekto tyrimą.
And I would like now to share one of the teachers, Victoria's ideas and her thoughts about the emotional intelligence testing.
Yes. And
Ilgą laiką buvo manoma, kad racionalusis intelektas yra labai svarbus, bet kalbant apie lyderystę ir efektyvumą darbe, šiandien emocionalusis intelektas turbūt užima pirmą vietą pagal reikšmę ir svarbą. Todėl, kai gavau galimybę įsitirti ir pasimatuoti savo emocinį intelektą, priėmiau tai labai teigiamai, dėl to, kad tikrai norėjau sužinoti. Ir testo rezultatai manęs ko gero nenustebino, nes kaip ir pats testas sako, puikiai pažįstu save. Nauja buvo tai, kad pažinau savo, turbūt, sakykime, silpnasias pusės ir tas testas tikrai padėjo man suvokti, ką reikia stiprinti ir kokiais būdais tai padaryti. Man labai patiko patarimai, kuriais jau dabar stengiuosi vadovautis.
No, maybe I think we can see the
Yeah.
Yep.
So
it was second 51. So 51 seconds, and I think if you just click on a C key, the letter C, it should bring up the subtitles again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So at 51 seconds, that's where it stopped.
Yes, I know, but okay, give me a second.
Yeah, sure.
What is this?
Breathe in, breathe out.
And breathe out. Exercise optimism, navigate emotions, and everything will be okay. This is technology, and we're all dealing with this.
Would you like me to send you the link?
Yeah, could you?
Yeah, of course. 1 second.
And Nora, you can even share if you want.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Could you?
Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Right. Let me try it now. 1 second, please. Bear with me.
Not a good idea.
Almost there. Almost there. Did you find it, or would you like me to do it?
Yeah, could you?
Of course. Okay, 1 second. So we were around 51. Sorry, I don't know why, but I can't see the subtitles either.
Yeah, they
Okay.
disappeared.
1 second. We will fix this. Nomada, could you please try this link?
And in the meanwhile, Rasa, if I can just ask a question, because you specifically spoke about the resistance of teachers, and this is so common when we try to implement changes in schools. And so I just wanted to ask you, and you are already answering, but what was maybe one key thing that allowed them to pass from resistance to engagement?
Rasa, kol sutvarkysim visą šitą video ir taip toliau, jūs norėtų paklausti, jūs pati šnekėjote apie tai, kad kai kurie mokytojai priešinasi pokyčiam mokyklose. Jeigu reikėtų taip viskas paprastinti ir generalizuoti, koks būtų vienas dalykas, kuris jums padėjo persilaužti per tuos prieštaravimus?
Turbūt tai buvo tai, kad aš tikėjau, kad žmonės suvoks, kiek yra svarbu įgyti emocinį intelektą ir jį ugdyti. Todėl jau praėjus dabar kažkokiam tai laikui, tai tikrai matau, kad tie pokyčiai vyksta. Žmonės supranta naudą, supranta svarbą to ir daro tai, ką mes nusprendėm visą organizaciją.
She believed consistently from the very beginning that sooner or later people would see the reason for why this is being done and what is the purpose and the meaning of emotional intelligence. And now that some time has passed, you can look back and see, yes, those changes have been made and the people have changed their thinking.
The meaning, again, it's one of the key things for everyone, probably finding the meaning in what they were doing and then understanding the connection with emotional intelligence.
Turbūt mes grįžtame prie to, kad svarbiausia yra prasminiai akcentai, ar ne? Kokia yra mūsų prasmė, kodėl mes taip viską darom ir kodėl mes taip renkamės.
Gal man toliau pranešimą skaityti, kol pavyks?
if we could, I couldn't get the subtitles. I have a video, but I can't get the subtitles for this record. But still, I do have for the second one. We have in a plan.
Yeah, we will send people these links after the conference. So no worries, you will receive these also videos. And no worries about that, Nomeda. Unfortunately, we can't share, but it's in any case very good.
Rasa, siūlo mums įdėti toliau šitos visus video pasidalins su klausytojais.
Taigi, gimnazijos pokyčių procese tapo labai svarbi mokytojų lyderystė, ypač identifikuojant įstaigos tikslus.
So the teacher's leadership became more and more important as we moved on, especially when setting goals for the establishment.
Taip pat nustatant pokyčio kryptį, formuojant strategijas, įtraukiant ir motyvuojant žmonės, teikiant paramą jiems, kuriant organizacijai palankų kontekstą kaitai.
And then also in this context, it was very important for the teacher's leadership to help us decide the direction of changes, to formulating a strategy in achieving these changes, engaging and motivating people to participate in the process, supporting others, and creating a change positive type of context.
Buvo organizuojamos įvairios veiklos, mokymosi sesija, daug kalbama apie emocinio intelekto svarbą žmogaus gyvenime.
We discussed the importance of EQ in a person's life for a long time. We had various activities planned as well as training sessions.
Turėjo būti dar sekantis video, nežinau ar kokia.
And here's another video that we'll attempt to show.
Tai mūsų gimnazijos psichologės nuomonė apie emocinį intelektą.
This is our school psychologist ideas about emotional intelligence.
Let's try.
Atpažinti emocijas ir jas valdyti, mokėjimas motyvuoti save ir kitus, gebėjimas bendrauti su aplinkiniais, empatija, įgūdis atpažinti emocijas kitose žmonėse ir sugebėti informaciją nukreipti tinkamą linkme. Asmenys turintys aukštą emocinį intelektą lengviau susidoroja su stresinėmis situacijomis, geba valdytis, nepuola į kraštutinumus tiek asmeniniam, tiek profesiniam gyvenime. Todėl labai svarbu, kad šis emocinis intelekto tyrimas buvo atliktas mūsų gimnazijoje. Esu gimnazijos psichologė ir man rūpi mikroklimatas, jo kolektyvo emocinė kultūra. Todėl, manau, kuo kolegoms svarbu įsivertinti save, pamatyti savo silpnąsias ir tobulintinas pusės. Tokiu būdu, išanalizavus save, kolegos gali stiprinti savo silpnąsias pusės ir tokiu būdu tobulėti, nes emocijos yra labai svarbios sprendimų priėmime ir motyvacijoje, o ypač dirbant darbą su mokiniais. Todėl kolegos įsivertinę save turi puikią galimybę tobulinti save ir taip stiprinti savo emocijas, parodyti savo visą potencialą, gebėjimą bendradarbiauti su kitais, nes kartu dirbant yra nuveikiama daug daugiau ir apskritai emocinė kultūra, ypač mokykloje, yra labai svarbi. Emocinis intelektas.
Taigi, reziumuojant savo pranešimą, noriu pasakyti, kad pradėjus atlikinėti šitą tyrimą, šitą projektą mūsų gimnazijoje, supratau, kad mano kaip lyderio vien lyderystės nebeužtenka.
So to conclude, once we began this project in our school, I understood that for me to be the single person with emotional intelligence and leadership is not enough.
Tapo aišku, kad mokykloje gimsta naujas reiškinys pasidalytojo lyderystė.
It became clear to us that we were seeing a new phenomenon unfold, which is shared leadership.
O pasidalytojo lyderystė, tai yra, kad jos pradas yra emocijos.
The basis of shared leadership is emotions.
Nuo emocinio klimato darbe labai priklauso mokytojų darbo rezultatai.
The emotional climate at work directly impacts the teacher's results.
O mano kaip vadovės užduotis pagrindinė yra skleisti optimizmą, entuziazmą, kurti bendravimo ir pasitikėjimo atmosferą, kitaip tariant, lavinti visos bendruomenės narių emocinį intelektą.
The main goal of myself as a leader is to share optimism, enthusiasm, create an atmosphere of collaboration and trust. In other words, to develop emotional intelligence.
Todėl drąsiai galiu pasakyti, kad emocinis intelektas yra didesnė gyvenimo kokybė.
This is why I can very confidently say that emotional intelligence improves life's quality.
Emocinis intelektas tai savimonė, savikontrolė, socialinis sąmoningumas ir santykių valdymas. Šitai gali padėti įgyvendinti pokyčius visoje srityje, pradedant šeimą, mokyklą, miesto, šaly ar netgi pasaulyje.
A person's EQ, and that could be a student, a teacher, or a principal, it is self-awareness, self-control, social skills, and relationship management. And this can improve our lives in all contexts, whether it's family, school, city, country, or global.
Tai ačiū visiems už dėmesį ir linkiu neužmiršti emocinio intelekto svarbos.
Thank you very much for your attention, and I hope we can always appreciate the importance of emotional intelligence.
Fantastic, Raza. Thank you so much for this sharing. And I just put in the chat, I think one key concept that is really, if all of us here, we want to be EQ leaders in our setting, educational settings, it means that we need to share leadership and ownership and empower other people. And how we can do this, Raza said, through emotional intelligence. And so this is probably what we really need and what we are trying to do every day through different activities and in models and techniques and practice. Thank you again, Raza.
Iš to, ką išnekėjot, Rasa, labai aišku, kad jeigu mes kaip lyderiai norime kažką pasiekti savo mokyklose, kad mums tą lyderystę reikia pasidalinti ir kad šitas naujas fenomenas, apie kurį mes šnekėjome, jis yra raktas tolimesniam emocinio intelekto plėtojimui mokyklose, nes raktas ir yra emocinis intelektas.
So, appreciate also. Thank you, Rasa, so much. I support you in every single step, and we will make it happen together. The last but not least presentation is about the educator's excellence needed for work with gifted children. And children with extremely high rational cognitive intelligence, sometimes I perceive as a problem in the class, as a headache, as a teacher's headache. So Mrs. Diletta Tingiuliene will present her story. And the questions here are, what initiative Mrs. Diletta Tingiuliene took? What were the driving factors? Why did she invest so much time and energy? And believe me, I know that was not an easy road to take. And what is the purpose? So, Diletta, the stage is yours.
Labą dieną visiems, esu Diletta Tingiuliene, Gifted centro vadovė ir projekto koordinatorė Lietuvoje.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Diletta Tingiuliene, and I am the leader and the coordinator of the Gifted program in Lithuania.
Šiandien mūsų programoje yra labai svarbus intelekto koeficientas, aukštas intelekto koeficientas atliepiantis gabių vaikų galimybės, bet nei kiek nemažesnis, nemažiau svarbus yra ir emocinis intelektas.
At the moment in our program, we are often talking about IQ, the rational intelligence, but it is important to note that EQ is no less important.
Šiandien kalbant apie emocinį intelektą ir apie emocijas, aš jums noriu padovanoti emocijas.
Atsiprašau, galėtumėt pakartot?
Padovanoti emocijas noriu.
So today, while talking about emotional intelligence, what I would like to do is to give you emotions as a gift.
Šaunuka.
Yeah, just a minute.
Kiekvienas vaikas yra unikalus. Tačiau yra vaikų, kurie ir objektyviai vertinant išsiskiria iš kitų itin aukštais gebėjimais, nulemtais jų prigimties. Gabūs ir talentingi vaikai lenkia savo bendramžius brandesnių mąstymų, kūrybiškumu, naujų žinių įsisavinimo greičiu, o dažnai ir aukštesniais pasiekimais. Taip pat jie dažnai būna jautresni ir juos supančiai aplinkai. Todėl mokydamiesi gali patirti iššūkių. Tokio vaiko gebėjimams atskleisti reikia palaikančios aplinkos, kurioje mokytojai puoselėtų jo smalsumą ir mokymosi būdus pritaikytų prie jo poreikių. Tarptautinė Lietuvos Izraelio gabių vaikų ugdymo programa Gifted yra skirta atrasti ir ugdyti šių talentingų vaikų gebėjimus. Gifted – tai specialios programos intelektualiam bei emociniam gabių vaikų ugdymui ir profesionali IQ testavimo metodika, pagal kurią nustatomas vaiko intelekto koeficientas, siekiant parengti individualų ugdymo planą kiekvienam, atsižvelgiant į jo gebėjimus. Tarptautinė Lietuvos-Izraelio ugdymo programa Gifted – tai atvira mokymosi aplinka, kurioje vaikai sutiks mokytojus ir dėstytojus, tapsiančius partneriais augant ne tik intelektualiai, bet ir emociškai. Programos vykdytojai Vytauto didžiojo universitetas, IP Capital ir tarptautiniu mastu pripažintas Izraelio Rishon Raziono Ronvardi centras. Gifted – visapusis išsilavinimas ateities kūrėjams.
Tai tiek trumpai apie mūsų programą, ką mes darome.
That is a short description of our program and what we do.
Jei nori turėti tai, ko niekas neturi, pabandyk padaryti tai, ko niekas nedarė. Aš naudodamasi progą labai noriu padėkoti Nomedai, su kuria mes jau turbūt prieš daug metų pradėjom Kauno miesto mokytojus ir vadovus supažindinti, kad koks svarbus mokykloje yra emocinis intelektas.
So if you want to have something that nobody has, try doing something that no one has done before. And Diletta would like to thank Nomeda, which she has met many years ago back in Kaunas when they were trying to teach the leaders and teachers of Kaunas and show them the importance of EQ.
Turbūt sutiksite, kad geriausia investicija į ateitį tai yra mokslas, pažinimas, nes žinių iš tavęs nieks netims.
You will probably agree that the best investment to the future is knowledge and learning, because knowledge is something that can never be taken away from you.
Nors žmonės gimsta lygus, jie užaugs skirtingi.
And although people are born equal, they will still grow up different.
Viskas priklauso nuo to, kokioje šeimoje jie gimsta, kokioje aplinkoje jie auga, kokius mokytojus savo gyvenime sutinka ir kiek į juos investuojama meilės ir žinių.
It is very important to know that the person's family context, the way that they grow up, the teachers and the people they meet, and how much knowledge is invested into them is what determines how you will end up.
Gabūs vaikai privalo gauti šansą vystyti savo galimybių potencialą, jie turi teisę gauti jiems reikalingą pagalbą švietime.
Gifted children must have a chance to develop themselves and achieve their potential, and they must have a chance to participate in the educational system.
Šiuo metu Lietuvoje didelis dėmesys skiriamas vaikams turintiems mokymosi sunkumų.
At the moment in Lithuania, a lot of attention is given to children dealing with the difficulty of learning.
Ir kažkodėl pamirštama, kad gabūs vaikai tai irgi specialiųjų poreikių vaikai, kuriems reikalinga pagalba.
And for some reason it is forgotten that gifted children also require that extra attention to support them in their learning.
Mūsų gabių vaikų programoje Gifted būtent stengiamasi atkreipti dėmesį į šituos vaikus, į gabiuosius.
Our program Gifted is concentrated on these gifted children with extra abilities.
Gabių vaikų protas yra labai didelis, bet emociškai jie labai dažnai yra pažeidžiami.
The mind of a gifted child is very large and wide, but emotionally they're usually very vulnerable.
Ir prieš pradėdami dirbti su šitais vaikais, pirmiausiai, ką padarėme, tai pasiruošėme mokytojus.
And before starting working with children like that, what we needed to do first was prepare our teachers.
Būtent mokytojus, turiu minti mokytoją.
Specifically teachers, the teachers for them.
Turinčius ne tik žinių, kaip mokyti gabiuosius, bet ir kaip juos priimti, kaip reaguoti.
And we needed teachers who not only have the knowledge of how to teach these children, but also how to be able to react to them and how to accept them.
Kaip būti partneriais ir kolegomis tiems vaikams.
How can they become partners and colleagues to these children?
Tik aukšto emocinio intelekto mokytojai gali priimti iššūkį dirbti su gabiais vaikais.
And only a teacher with high emotional intelligence can take up the challenge to work with gifted children.
Tada pagalvojam ir apie mokytojus.
So this is where we think about teachers.
Kad jiems irgi reikia pagalbos. Todėl
Teachers need support too.
Todėl šalia mes sukūrėm visą palaikymo psichologų platformą.
That is why we created a new platform of psychologists who can provide the support for the teachers.
Psichologai teikia pagalbą vaikams, kurie nesusitvarko su savo emocijom.
The psychologists can also support the children who find it difficult to manage their emotions.
Psichologai padeda tėvams, kurie nežino, kaip elgtis su savo gabiais vaikais.
Psychologists can also assist parents who have no idea how to treat their gifted children.
Ir psichologai padeda mokytojams, nes jiems irgi kartais reikia padėti.
And psychologists will support the teachers as well, because teachers also need help sometimes.
Savo Gifted centre mes pirmiausiai stengiamės sukurti palankų emocinį klimatą ir siekti maksimalių mokymosi rezultatų.
In our Gifted Center, our first priority is creating a positive learning and emotional environment, and then to achieve high learning results.
Investicija į gabų žmogų visada atsiperka.
Investing in a gifted person always pays out.
Nes jie yra būsimi mūsų šalies lyderiai, mokslininkai, Nobelio premijos laureatai.
They are the future leaders, scientists, and Nobel Prize winners of our country.
Mes sukūrėme savo centre jiems sąlygas vystytis emociškai, komfortabiliai, bendrauti su tokiais pačiais kaip ir jie ir jaustis laimingais.
In our center, we created an opportunity for these children to learn, talk to, and communicate with other children that are like them, and to feel comfortable and supported.
Na, o kad vaikas būtų laimingas, pirmiausiai laimingas turi būti mokytojas, ir tai mums pasakė vaikai.
And in order for a child to be happy, the first thing that they need is for the teacher to be happy. And this is what the children have told us.
Koks turi būti mokytojas?
What should a teacher be like?
Kūrybiškas, nuoširdus, draugiškas, protingas. Aš noriu pacituoti vienos mergaitės mintį.
So the teacher should be creative, honest, friendly, supportive, and so on. And Diletta would like to quote an idea of one of the girls in the project.
Aš norėčiau, kad mokytojai dažniau kviestų mane pasisakyti, nes aš labai dažnai noriu pasisakyti.
I wish that the teachers would notice me and ask me to answer more, because I often want to answer.
Norėčiau paprašyti mokytojos papildomų užduočių, nes jau visas savaitės užduotis seniai padariau.
I would like to ask my teacher for some extra work, because I've done all of the work for the week.
Aš visą laiką stengiuosi būti rimta ir nusiteikusi pamokai, kad mokytojai nereikėtų rėkti.
I always try to be concentrated and focused at the lesson so that the teacher doesn't have to raise her voice.
Mano mokytojo savybė yra draugiškumas ir tai man padeda.
I think the most important thing for the teacher is being friendly, and this is what helps me.
Nes kai ji būna pikta, ji labai negražiai elgiasi.
When the teacher is angry, she tends to get rude.
Ji rodo neteisingus atsakymus ir iš jo juokiasi.
She will show wrong answers and then laugh at them.
Man svarbiausiai, kad mokytojas su malonumu padėtų, tada aš jaučiuosi, kad rūpiu.
For me, the most important thing is that the teacher wants to help me. That's when I feel like they care and I matter.
Man svarbiausiai, kad mokytojas manim pasitikėtų.
The most important thing for me is for a teacher to trust me.
Tai vaikų mintis, kurios verčia susimastyti.
These are the thoughts from children that really make us think.
Na, o dabar aš noriu padovanoti jums dar vieną emociją. Noriu, kad atsipalaiduotumėte ir pasižiūrėtumėte vis tik tai, kaip atsidarė mūsų Gifted centras, pirmas Lietuvoje ir turbūt pirmas Europoje.
And now she would like to give you another emotion as a gift so that we can see how the center opened up in Lithuania and started its work.
Tiltas tarp Izraelio ir Lietuvos, tai Vytauto didžiojo universiteto vaikų ugdymo centras Gifted bus atidarytas netrukus.
Lietuva turi labai didelį turtą. Jinai turi savo žmonės. Ir mes į tą turtą turim žiūrėti su didžiausia pagarba. Mes čia norėsime jiems suteikti sparnus jų įgimtiems gabumams, išplėtoti juos, išvystyti, suteikti ženkliai daugiau galimybių.
sekančią skaidrę.
Is that?
Kodėl mes tai darome? Kodėl
Why
mes...
do we do this?
Todėl, kad matome prasmę ir žinoma, kad jaučiamės labai laimingi tai darydami.
Because we see the purpose of it and because we feel very happy doing it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really, sharing all these stories of leaders has been amazing. And thank you, Nomeda, for bringing all these fantastic stories to us and to this conference.
Yeah, thank you indeed. Thank you all participants. Thank you guests. Thank you, Nora. Really great job done and summarizing all the ideas. I very much believe that the main source of motivation and the reason we get out of bed in the morning and bounce back in the facing the failure is the clear answer to the question why we are doing what we are doing. The question why. And when the answer is clear, then there is no space for obstacles. You know, the meaning, the merit, the purpose brings energy every single day. So thank you all.
Thank you, Nomeda, and thank you all of you. Let us just end because we are 15 minutes late, but we really believe that maybe if you agree also, Catherine, we just want to end with two other pieces of information for you. That if you are interested, as Nomeda, Larissa, and Ruth had done and have been doing over these years, to know more about social and emotional learning, please contact us and check our website, because 6 Seconds has developed over these years a curriculum of lessons that you can use to integrate social and emotional learning in schools. And this curriculum is called Self-Science, and it's available to all of you educators once you are professionally trained. We strongly believe, as all of these people testimonials shared with us, that we need to start from teachers, from educators, from consultants, knowing more about how to use emotional intelligence in the field. And to do this, we developed as 6 Seconds programs specifically for educators. And these programs are available on our 6 Seconds site, and we will put these links in the chat. So please remember that the change starts within us, with us, as human beings, of course, as adults first, and then we can, once we are equipped and starting from ourselves, we can go outside and share with other people, with children, but also with other colleagues, with peers, and with families. So we wanted to have a final interaction with you, but I don't know if we can do it. Catherine, what do you think?
I think probably not, but we can look forward to a wonderful opportunity to do so on a similar conference.
Absolutely.
It would be lovely to join you in a future event, perhaps in the summer, where we can do a bit more celebrating about the work that we've done. And it'd be lovely to hear some of the voices of the people who have joined this conference today. Thank you so much to those of you who have joined us and taken part so actively with curiosity. And thank you to those people speaking about their experiences. It's so wonderful to hear you and to hear that we have so much to share. And I'm sure that I speak for many of us when I feel so inspired to go and take action. Thank you.
We will put in the chat our emails, direct emails, so you can contact us. and absolutely, please share your feelings, your thoughts, and we will be also very glad to have a direct chat with you all. And after the conference, you will receive an email, as said, with the link to the recordings and other attachments, articles, and studies, and everything that we shared today. So thank you again for your participation, your courage and enthusiasm today. Thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Nora, labai noriu padėkoti. Nomeda.
And Nora, thank you. Yeah.
Oh, no worries at all. Nėra už ką.
Tiesiog.
I'm going through the chat one more time and looking and then reading the feedback.
Oh, it was amazing.
Yeah, true. Thank you, Lithuanian ladies. And also I saw some Lithuanian surnames in the list of participants, so they showed interest and appreciate a lot. So together we will make it happen.
And definitely I will watch it again in recording. Enjoy.